the shadows surrounding the Epiphyllum Cult are growing deeper. As hidden enemies begin to move, Guan is forced to uncover secrets buried beneath the surface of the Great Cang Dynasty secrets, involving ancient inheritances, mysterious cultivators, and powers far beyond what most believe possible. Yet while the world edges closer to chaos, Guan wants only one thing: to cultivate his herbs, quietly accumulate lifespan, and stay out of trouble. Unfortunately, trouble seems determined to find him first. And this time, something powerful is approaching from the north. Welcome to episode 11.
You?
Zongying's eyes widened, his voice trembling. He could hardly believe what he was feeling. He had already poured out every ounce of strength he possessed, yet he still could not break free from Guan's grasp. Worse, it was not merely that he could not escape, he could not even release his power. Under normal circumstances, the slightest eruption of strength from an integration realm cultivator would have brought this entire Medicine Valley crashing down, but neither his physical strength nor his spiritual power could leave his body. An unimaginable force pressed in around him, suppressing him completely. Never in his life had he felt so helpless, so stifled. He was an integration realm cultivator, a man who could roam freely across all 9 dynasties. Despair flooded Zongying's heart. He knew disaster had caught up with him, but he did not want to die. "Senior, spare my life," Zongying gritted out. Not a trace remained of the dignity one would expect from an integration realm expert. Guan had already sealed the surrounding space with spiritual power, ensuring that not a word of their conversation could escape. He had a preliminary guess about Zongying's identity, which was why he had not killed him immediately. Instead, he asked, "Give me one reason not to kill you." Even now, Zongying had yet to develop any hostility toward Guan. He was probably too terrified to even think of resistance. "I call myself Ghost Taoist. I came to steal the Xuanqing tree not for myself, but for the common people of the world. Senior, if you are truly an expert of the Tai Xuan Sect, then you should understand the disparity of resources in the cultivation world. The Tai Xuan Sect monopolizes far too many cultivation resources. Spiritual energy among the common folk is thin, and those without powerful families behind them have almost no chance to rise. If this continues, one day the cultivation world will belong to nothing but the great clans." Zongying spoke at length. By the end, his eyes had even reddened with emotion. Guan sighed inwardly. What a convincing performance. As for Ghost Taoist's supposed ideals, Guan actually agreed with them. Protecting all living beings under heaven was certainly righteous and chivalrous. But that did not mean he could steal from Guan. "You already know how strong I am. I have no choice but to kill you, otherwise word of my strength may leak out," Guan said without changing expression. The moment those words fell, Zongying nearly lost his soul from fright. His eyes darted about, and then something occurred to him. He hurriedly said, "I know a curse technique that can make me obey you absolutely. I would be incapable of defying you. If I ever did, calamity would descend upon me and I would die without an intact corpse." There was a chance he could fool him. The fear in Zongying's heart vanished, replaced by sudden excitement. "Zongying has developed hostility toward you. His hatred runs to the bone. Would you like to use lifespan detection on him? I was just about to spare you, and now you already hate me? Interesting." Guan's curiosity was piqued. "What curse technique?" Zongying explained. "It is called the Tianjian curse. Once both sides form the ritual seal and I swear an oath to you, the curse will be established." "Very well, come with me. We'll find somewhere deserted and form the curse seal there." Guan dragged Zongying toward the distant teleportation platform. Zongying remained pinned by his spiritual power, unable to move a muscle, yet inwardly he relaxed. His opponent seemed to have truly believed him. As Guan hauled him away, thoughts raced through his mind. Who was this man, really? To suppress an integration realm cultivator like him so effortlessly, could he have already reached the profound heart realm? Could this man be one of the Tai Xuan Sect's reclusive supreme elders? The more Zongying thought about it, the more frightened he became. This information had to be reported to the cult. And so the two teleported to Xuan Valley, then left the valley again. A few disciples glanced at them curiously along the way, but after seeing the two apparently chatting and smiling together, they quickly looked elsewhere. Only after traveling more than 10 li beyond Xuan Valley, once Guan was certain no one had followed, did he finally stop. The two stood in the middle of a forest. From beginning to end, Zongying had never escaped Guan's spiritual suppression. He forced a flattering smile. "Senior, can we begin now?" Guan nodded and smiled as well. The instant Zongying saw that smile, his expression changed drastically. His instinct screamed danger. Before he could think further, a terrifying surge of divine sense crashed straight into his mind. Soul-capturing art. In a dim great hall, Zongying knelt on one knee, staring toward a mysterious black figure seated above the steps. The figure was shrouded from head to toe in dark smoke, its true appearance impossible to discern. "Your aura concealment art is the best among us. You will investigate the true foundations of the Tai Xuan Sect, the shadowy figure said in a cold male voice devoid of emotion. Zhong Ying hesitated. Lu Baitian has become sect master of the Tai Xuan Sect again. His cultivation may already have reached the 9th level of the integration realm. Are we truly going to confront them head-on? The mysterious figure replied. This is an order from the main branch. We must seize the Tai Cang Dynasty before the great demonic calamity arrives. The Tai Cang Dynasty lies near the sea and will be of vital importance to our cult's future plans. Zhong Ying's face lit up. Order from the main branch? The main branch finally has the freedom to assist us? Our failure 200 years ago left the main branch deeply dissatisfied. Although we have infiltrated the Tai Cang Dynasty, compared with the progress of the other branches, we have brought shame upon the Epiphyllum Cult. You will move first and investigate the Tai Xuan Sect's present strength. Once a profound heart realm grand cultivator from the main branch arrives, we will begin the war against the Tai Xuan Sect. Hearing this, Zhong Ying immediately accepted with excitement. In his eyes, this was the perfect opportunity to earn merit. The scene shattered. Guan's divine sense plunged deeper, uncovering more of Zhong Ying's memories. This man was not Ghost Taoist at all. He had merely borrowed Ghost Taoist's name to put the Tai Xuan Sect on alert. Once they began making preparations, he would have a much easier time determining how many hidden experts the sect still possessed. The reason he had not acted under the name of the Epiphyllum Cult was simple. He did not want to startle the snake in the grass. If his plan failed, he could still survive under the identity of Ghost Taoist. Ghost Taoist was known for righteous deeds, while the Tai Xuan Sect was a great orthodox sect. They might not necessarily kill someone bearing that name. If Guan had not possessed the ability to perceive hostility, he truly might have been fooled. A long while later, half an hour in the outside world, the forest fell silent again. Zhong Ying collapsed with a thud at Guan's feet. His eyes had rolled back, his body rigid and lifeless. His primordial spirit had been shattered by Guan's overwhelming spiritual power, his soul extinguished even before his flesh had fully died. Without changing expression, Guan took Zhong Ying's storage pouch, then burned the corpse with spiritual flame. Killing Zhong Ying awarded him 240 years of lifespan, but even that did little to improve his mood. There had never been any so-called Tianjian curse in Zhong Ying's memories. Instead, Guan had seen the man's past deeds, murdering cultivators for treasure, slaughtering entire sects, violating female cultivators, refining souls into ghostly artifacts, and countless other atrocities. His crimes were truly piled mountain high. Guan's impression of the Epiphyllum Cult immediately worsened to an extreme degree. He had originally assumed the conflict between the Epiphyllum Cult and the Tai Xuan Sect was merely an ordinary struggle between factions. Now, however, he felt that if the Epiphyllum Cult ever unified the Tai Cang Dynasty, life for its people would only become more miserable. The Tai Xuan Sect had its dark side as well, but at least its integration realm cultivators were not this vile. Profound heart realm, Guan murmured inwardly, then turned and left. Autumn wind swept through the forest, scattering Zhong Ying's ashes. They drifted into the air and vanished completely, leaving not a trace behind. Guan first returned to the Bajing Grotto Heaven. There, he thoroughly inspected Zhong Ying's storage pouch and destroyed anything suspicious that might reveal the location of the Grotto Heaven. He kept only the cultivation resources. A storage pouch belonging to an integration realm grand cultivator truly was on another level. It contained countless magical artifacts of every imaginable shape and function, along with a great number of pills, including many sinister, unorthodox ones. It took him a full hour to finish sorting everything before he finally left the Bajing Grotto Heaven. After returning to Xuan Valley, Guan went to find Yang Ni. He wanted to see how the epiphyllum plants were growing. He found her seated in meditation within the epiphyllum garden. Earlier, she had been so absorbed in cultivation that neither Guan nor Zhong Ying had caught her attention. People from the Alchemy Hall, the Law Enforcement Hall, and the Ji clan occasionally came to seek Guan, so she had long since grown used to strangers appearing around him. Of course, the biggest reason was still that Zhong Ying's aura concealment method had been exceptionally powerful. "Why are you cultivating here?" Guan asked. He could tell that Yang Ni was absorbing the spiritual energy of the epiphyllum plants. That was not good. It would hinder their growth. Yang Ni opened her eyes. "If I cultivate elsewhere in the valley, I'm afraid my true cultivation will be exposed." Guan simply pulled her to her feet and started toward his pavilion. "Then cultivate in my room. I set up a restriction there not long ago. The disciples can't spy on what happens inside." Yang Ni frowned, but it was awkward to refuse him outright. In the end, she could only follow Guan back into the valley. The bitter winter soon descended. An endless white snow blanketed the third medicine valley. Guan was reading in his room when Ji Xiaoyu suddenly came to visit. He hurriedly put away the Tai Xuan secret chronicle and rose to receive her. Ji Xiaoyu closed the door, cast another restriction over the room, and then asked, "Did you comprehend the Shenzhou Classic in a dream?" She had been studying the Shenzhou Classic for half a year now, and had gained many insights from it. Guan put on a serious expression. "It isn't a cultivation method, it's a philosophy for living. It can help stabilize your state of mind, and only with a calm heart can you cultivate properly. So you didn't comprehend it in a dream? Of course not. Years ago I met an old senior in the outer sect. He gave me the Shenzhou Classic and rambled about how the great Tao is found in simplicity and all sorts of things like that. Over the years though, I've studied it often. My cultivation hasn't improved, but my heart has grown calmer and broader. Hardly anything troubles me anymore, and I don't become obsessed with things as easily." Guan shook his head as he spoke. Ji Xiaoyu looked at him deeply. "This book truly is useful," she said. "My own state of mind has become far calmer than before. I no longer dwell endlessly on things I cannot accomplish for the time being." She paused, then continued. "I want to bring a copy back to the Ji clan. Would you agree to that? If you do, I'll try to secure a 7th rank spirit tree for you. The Ji clan's foundations are no weaker than those of the Tai Xuan Sect. Of course, if you refuse, I won't force you. I promise I won't reveal the Shenzhou Classic to outsiders." A 7th rank spirit tree? The Ji clan was capable of that? Guan suppressed the joy in his heart and answered calmly, "Naturally, I agree. Even Confucius aspired to spread his teachings throughout the world. How could I hoard such wisdom for myself?" The Shenzhou Classic was, in truth, a patchwork of sayings from Laozi, Confucius, Zhuangzi, and many other sages of ancient China. Guan had even written their names into the book, presenting them as transcendent figures of extraordinary wisdom. Ji Xiaoyu beamed when she heard his answer, and immediately began discussing the Shenzhou Classic with him. They talked for a long time before she finally rose to leave. Just as she reached the door, Ji Xiaoyu suddenly turned back. "Now that you possess such a large third medicine valley, your status is no longer what it once was. You must have heard of the Epiphyllum Cult by now. If anyone from the cult tries to recruit you, do not agree. Why? The Epiphyllum Cult acts in sinister and perverse ways. They are not part of the righteous path. Anyone who schemes alongside them rarely meets a good end. Besides, the Ji clan and the Epiphyllum Cult have been enemies for generations." So that last part was the real point, wasn't it? Guan cursed inwardly. At the same time, he could sense just how much pressure the Epiphyllum Cult was exerting on the Tai Xuan Sect. If Ji Xiaoyu was warning him this directly, then she likely knew of many people who had already been approached by the cult. Guan waited for more than half a year. He even passed his 60th birthday. Yet the 7th rank spirit tree promised by the Ji clan still did not arrive. He trusted that Ji Xiaoyu would not deceive him. Perhaps the Ji clan had complicated procedures to deal with. He could only wait a little longer. In this regard, they were not as efficient as the Tai Xuan Sect. Back when the sect had promised him the Xuanqing tree, it had been delivered almost immediately. Under the blazing summer sun, Guan sowed seeds in the Third Medicine Valley while Gu Yu stood beside him, endlessly talking about Tai Xuan Immortal Venerable. This year, the story of Tai Xuan Immortal Venerable had reached its climax. The protagonist, Gu Yu, had finally met Zhou Tongyo, the second male lead, and the two were preparing to join forces against the Demon Lord, throwing the world into chaos. Countless readers were waiting eagerly for the battle. Guan was in a good mood. The night before, he had spent 100,000 years of lifespan to upgrade Great Yin-Yang Transformation into the 9 Extremes Yin-Yang Body. The 9 Extremes Yin-Yang Body retained its previous abilities to shield against prying eyes and obscure karmic deduction, while greatly enhancing the wonders of its clone technique. He could now create 9 clones and command them to fight or perform tasks on his behalf. After returning, he had even tested it by sending a clone to harvest medicinal herbs. Unfortunately, just as before, the harvested herbs granted him no lifespan. So in the end, he still had to do the work himself. As Guan buried another seed, he wondered which combat technique he should strengthen next. Originally, he had planned to improve one technique every month, but this year, he had frequently sensed integration realm cultivators battling in the North Sea mountain range, so he had postponed his schedule for strengthening himself. Gu Yu finally could not help looking over. "Hey, are you even listening to me?" Without lifting his head, Guan casually replied, "I can't write the story according to your whims. Just wait and see." "How much longer are you going to write Tai Xuan Immortal Venerable?" Gu Yu asked quietly. There was no one else within 10 li, so they did not fear being overheard. Not much longer. A few more years at most. What happens in the next volume? We'll see. I might not write another one at all. Don't say that. If you stop writing, it will be a tremendous loss to the cultivation world. If I stop writing, that would be a good thing. Then cultivators might finally focus on cultivation instead of sneaking off to read novels all day. Nonsense. Who reads all day? You barely write anything in an entire year. We only read after we're done cultivating. The two bickered back and forth until Guyu finally pulled out the newest issue of the Tai Xuan Secret Chronicle. Only then did Guan believe that he had not been slacking off merely to read fiction. Guan slipped the Tai Xuan Secret Chronicle into his storage pouch, then asked, "Has anything major happened in the cultivation world lately?" Guyu privately looked down on his behavior, but answered anyway. "There has, actually. The demonic path and the Epiphyllum Cult have been fighting in the North Sea mountain range for more than half a year. Xianxia Pavilion and the Myriad Yin Cult were nearly destroyed by the Epiphyllum Cult and are close to collapsing altogether. At this rate, within 2 or 3 years, the Epiphyllum Cult may unify the entire demonic path." The moment he mentioned the Epiphyllum Cult, his tone became excited again. "Sooner or later, the Epiphyllum Cult and the Tai Xuan Sect are going to fight. And that battle will determine who unifies the cultivation world of the Tai Cang Dynasty. The sect isn't panicking at all, which means they must be confident of victory." Hearing this, Guan could not help thinking of Lu Baitian's lifespan limit. He was still worried about whether Lu Baitian would successfully break through. When it came to lifespan limits, there was nothing Guan could do. Nor could he simply tell other people that such limits existed. A lifespan limit was almost like fate itself. Everyone who stepped onto the road of cultivation was already struggling against fate. So who would willingly believe in it? Still, Guan believed that somewhere in this world, there had to be a way to break destiny. It was simply very difficult to find. The two chatted for another half-hour before Guyu finally left. He mentioned that Gu Zong had recently entered secluded cultivation, apparently preparing for the coming conflict with the Epiphyllum Cult. Guyu himself intended to cultivate seriously as well, so that when the day came, he could contribute his strength to the Tai Xuan Sect. 7 days after Guyu's departure, the Alchemy Hall issued an order to purchase medicinal herbs from the various medicine valleys ahead of schedule. Even the third medicine valley received cultivators from the Lu clan and the Ji clan, who came to buy large quantities of herbs. All the signs suggested that something major was about to happen. Yet Guan did not think first of an attack by the Epiphyllum Cult. Instead, he thought of Lu Baitian preparing to challenge the heavenly mandate and attempt a breakthrough into the profound heart realm. In the blink of an eye, summer passed and autumn arrived. At noon that day, Guan entered Tianya Valley and discovered that Li Xuandao was there as well. His cultivation had already reached the void-crossing realm. A void-crossing cultivator only a little over 200 years old, Guan had never seen another like him. And yet, on the surface, Li Xuandao displayed only the first level of core formation. He truly knew how to hide. The two sat down at the stone table beside the pavilion and began to chat. Li Xuandao praised Guan's extraordinary skill at cultivating medicinal herbs, saying that thanks to the herbs Guan had grown, he had finally managed to break through into the core formation realm. Without those medicines, Li Xuandao had planned to ask Lingjun to help transplant a golden core into him. But naturally, such a method could never compare with forming a golden core through one's own breakthrough. Guan could only smile and say that it was all because his uncle possessed excellent aptitude. Judging from Li Xuandao's smile, Guan could easily guess what he was thinking. He was probably secretly delighted, believing that no one knew about his true void-crossing cultivation. "Guan, how is Yangni doing?" Li Xuandao asked with a smile as he lifted his teacup. "Very well. She's even begun growing medicinal herbs now. You could say she has become a kindred spirit of mine," Guan replied. "Growing medicinal herbs?" Li Xuandao's expression became strangely meaningful. A thought suddenly flashed through Guan's mind. Lu Baitian had once said that 200 years ago, the Epiphyllum Cult had controlled the imperial family. Could Li Xuandao's cultivation technique have come from the Epiphyllum Cult? Zhang Ying was the perfect example. His ability to conceal his cultivation had been so powerful that even someone at a higher realm would have struggled to detect him. Then Guan thought of Yang Ni growing Epiphyllum plants. How stupid of him! Could there actually be a spy of the Epiphyllum Cult right beside him? The more he thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. Li Xuandao continued, "The cultivation world has been restless lately. You all need to be more careful." Guan followed his lead. "Uncle, are you referring to the Epiphyllum Cult?" "Exactly. As the Emperor, what do you think of the Epiphyllum Cult?" Li Xuandao's face remained calm. "They harbor the hearts of wolves. They bring calamity upon all living beings." Guan froze. That did not sound like something a member of the Epiphyllum Cult would say. Li Xuandao began recounting the past. It turned out that his own imperial father had once been controlled by the Epiphyllum Cult, turning the entire court into a tool for the cult to plunder wealth. When the matter was finally exposed, his father was massacred by the Epiphyllum Cult. Li Xuandao had no choice but to request the intervention of the Tai Xuan Sect. His own ascension to the throne had also been tied to that incident. Because he had supplied intelligence to the Tai Xuan Sect, they supported him in becoming emperor. even though he had not been the crown prince. The hostility in Li Xuandao's voice whenever he spoke of the Epiphyllum Cult did not sound false to Guan. I intend to oppose the Tai Xuan Sect, but that is merely an internal struggle within the dynasty. If the Epiphyllum Cult goes to war against the Tai Xuan Sect, I will support the Tai Xuan Sect without the slightest hesitation, Li Xuandao said coldly. A flash of killing intent passed through his eyes, directed entirely at the Epiphyllum Cult. Guan asked in surprise, if the Epiphyllum Cult is so detestable, and no one even knows where their main headquarters is, why do so many people still join them? Because of the Epiphyllum, Li Xuandao replied. It is said that Epiphyllum can alter a cultivator's aptitude and even postpone their final calamity. On top of that, the cultivation resources they provide to new members are genuinely abundant. So there will always be people willing to join, he continued. From what I know at present, the Epiphyllum Cult's foundations are terrifyingly deep. They may even be stronger than the entire Tai Cang Dynasty, because the Epiphyllum Cult we are facing is only one branch. Epiphyllum? Alter a cultivator's aptitude? Guan raised an eyebrow. No wonder Yang Ni had been meditating in the Epiphyllum garden. Even so, he remained skeptical. Could a mere 6th-rank medicinal plant truly change someone's fate? Li Xuandao went on to describe what the Epiphyllum Cult had done 200 years ago. Back then, whole groups of commoners would regularly vanish from the world, sometimes leaving entire cities empty. To this day, Li Xuandao had never discovered where those people had gone. But one thing was certain, their chances of survival had been close to none. Guan listened as though he were hearing one ghost story after another, completely engrossed. This Epiphyllum Cult was truly sinister. It was said that its members were not limited to cultivators. Demonic creatures, ghosts, and other strange beings also served within its ranks. That made Guan think of the Epiphyllum Ghost Mother still lingering at Heaven Mending Platform. They talked for a full hour, and Li Xuandao still had more to say. Guan, for his part, showed no sign of growing bored. Then, suddenly, a notification appeared before his eyes. Zhongliang has developed hostility towards you and harbors killing intent. Would you like to use lifespan detection on him? Zhongliang? Who was that? Guan did not know him at all. He froze for a moment. In daily life, he was constantly helping others and went out of his way to avoid making enemies. Yet this name already sounded troublesome. Guan silently chose yes. This will consume 100 years of lifespan. Continue? That expensive? Unable to help himself, Guan asked aloud, Uncle, have you ever heard of someone named Zhongliang? Li Xuandao frowned. Has the Epiphyllum Cult already begun making contact with you? He's from the Epiphyllum Cult? Guan immediately became tense and chose yes again in his mind. Zhongliang, 3rd level integration realm, 1462, 2900, 3000. 3rd level of the integration realm. Guan's brows knitted tightly as he tried to understand how this man could possibly know of him. Was it because of Zhang Ying? No. He had checked Zhang Ying's body countless times and confirmed that there had been no communication artifact linked to any other grand cultivator. Besides, Zhang Ying had already been dead for half a year. Then who was it because of? The moment Guan realized the Epiphyllum Cult had set its sights on him, he felt an urge to charge straight into their lair and silence everyone involved. Unfortunately, the Epiphyllum Cult had no fixed lair, at least not in Zhang Ying's memories. Every meeting between Zhang Ying and that mysterious shadow had taken place somewhere different. 200 years ago, Zhongliang was the leader of the Epiphyllum Cult, Li Xuandao said in a low voice. Lu Baitian severely wounded him and forced him to flee. Where did you come into contact with him? Guan shook his head. I happened to meet him once in the outer sect of the Tai Xuan Sect. He invited me to search for some fortuitous opportunity, but I refused. After talking with Uncle for so long, today I suddenly remembered him. I never expected that he really was a demon of the Epiphyllum Cult. Li Xuandao did not doubt Guan. Instead, his mind immediately turned to other possibilities. Could Zhongliang be targeting Li Ya? Or perhaps Li Xuandao himself? His expression darkened as well. The name Zhongliang killed the mood for both of them. Not long afterward, Guan inspected Tianya Valley once, then hurried away. After returning to Xuan Valley, he entered the passage leading to the Bajing Grotto Heaven. He wanted to inspect Zhang Ying's storage pouch one more time, just in case. The moment he arrived, however, his divine sense caught sight of one of the Kangtung tree's vines, toying with Zhang Ying's storage pouch. Guan had kept his aura completely restrained, and his steps made no sound. He silently approached. The instant he emerged from the tunnel, the Kangtung tree visibly startled. Its vine snapped back with a whoosh. Guan walked straight up to it and said coldly, If you've already developed intelligence, why are you still hiding from me? Are you afraid of me? Be careful, or I might burn you to ash with a sing flame. As soon as he finished speaking, spiritual fire ignited over his right hand. Because of Zhongliang's hostility, Guan was in a terrible mood. The Kangtung tree trembled violently. Leaves fluttered down around it and a weak female voice emerged. I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of that tree. What tree? Guan asked, staring at the Kangtang tree. The tree was nearly 300 years old. That it could now speak human language did not surprise him. Its voice sounded somewhat like Jiang Qiong's. Perhaps while its intelligence had been forming, it had often listened to Jiang Qiong speak. I don't know, but I can sense it. It will eat me, the Kangtang tree said timidly. Guan frowned. His first thought was the human-faced tree. That thing had also come from Qianxiu Pavilion and was extremely sinister. But the human-faced tree was lower in rank than the Kangtang tree. How could it possibly frighten the Kangtang tree this badly? Where is it? Guan pressed. I don't know. Is it near you? Very far away. Very, very far. That answer allowed Guan to rule out the human-faced tree. Could this be connected to the Epiphyllum Cult? Could the disappearance of an entire city's population have been caused by some evil tree raised by the cult, one that devoured people? The more Guan thought about it, the more possible it seemed. Then he thought of Zhang Wang setting his sights on him, and his mood worsened further. He was not afraid of Zhang Wang himself. What he feared was someone discovering that he had been hiding his cultivation. No, he could not simply sit here waiting for death. A sharp light flashed through Guan's eyes. His terrifying Great Ascension Realm divine sense spread outward in an instant, sweeping across the entire Tai Cang Dynasty. The Tai Cang Dynasty was vast, but not vast enough to escape the divine sense of a Great Ascension cultivator. He was going to hunt down Zhang Wang. Even if he had to dig 3 feet beneath every inch of the dynasty, he would find him. Not searching would have been one thing. The moment he began, however, Guan was stunned by the sheer number of cultivators throughout the Tai Cang Dynasty. It truly felt like searching for a needle at the bottom of the sea. Still, Guan did not retreat before the difficulty. He refused to believe some sinister devil could remain hidden forever. He swore he would drag the enemy lurking in the darkness into the light. Deep underground, within a dark cellar, Su-Han sat bare-chested in meditation inside a freezing pool. Cold mist rose from the water around him. Beside him rested a long sword of white jade, as though carved from bone. Bloody energy coiled around its blade, giving it a horrifying appearance. Pain was written across Su-Han's face, but he gritted his teeth and endured. After a while, he suddenly heard a distant wail. Unable to stop himself, he opened his eyes and looked toward the figure meditating before the cave wall. Master, what was that sound just now? Zhang Wang kept his eyes closed and replied indifferently. Pay them no mind. They're merely a group of pitiful creatures begging heaven to show them mercy. Whether they live or die has nothing to do with you. His white hair hung loose and disheveled. He wore a broad Taoist robe and had a square, imposing face. Years of constant frowning had carved such a deep line between his brows that it almost resembled a third eye. Hearing those distant cries, Su-Han found it impossible to calm his heart. Do not forget why you joined the cult, Zhang Wang said again, a trace of impatience entering his voice. And do not forget why you are holding my sword. Su-Han took a deep breath and closed his eyes once more. The moment he did, Zhang Wang opened his own and looked at him. A cold light flashed through his gaze. This brat still doesn't hate deeply enough, Zhang Wang thought. I need to find a way to capture his master. Once I have that person in hand, I can use them to provoke him further. Suddenly, Zhang Wang's heart trembled. An overwhelming sense of unease descended upon him without warning, making his brow tighten. What is this, an illusion? Feeling increasingly unsettled, Zhang Wang immediately released his divine sense. But he found no trace of any enemy. Elsewhere inside the Bajing Grotto heaven, Guan's gaze suddenly changed. Found you. He had already swept the entire Tai Cang Dynasty once without finding a single stronghold of the Epiphyllum Cult. Then he suddenly thought of the underground, so he searched again, this time focusing on places where the flow of spiritual energy felt unusual. And that was when he discovered Su-Han. Su-Han was sitting beside an integration realm cultivator. A few li away from the two of them, inside a vast subterranean chamber, stood an enormous spirit tree. The instant Guan saw that tree, he knew it was the very thing the Kangtang tree feared. This had to be a stronghold of the Epiphyllum Cult. And from the look of things, there was nothing good happening there. Kill them all. Then continue searching for Zhang Wang. Until Zhang Wang was dead, Guan would never sleep peacefully again. He turned toward the Kangtang tree. From now on, if you're afraid of something, or if you sense anything unusual nearby, tell me immediately. I won't treat you poorly. The Kangtang tree's trunk twisted nervously. Yes, master, it answered in a timid voice. Guan then strode away. Even in front of the Kangtang tree, he had not revealed his true strength. It was always better to keep something in reserve. Leaving the Bajing Grotto heaven, Guan entered the forest, activated the limitless free step, and vanished into the earth. Back in the underground cellar, Zhang Wang continued to frown. His divine sense had swept the surroundings several times without detecting the slightest abnormality, but he refused to believe that his earlier sense of danger had been an illusion. Then, at that very moment, a hand suddenly settled on his shoulder. Zhong Wang's expression changed violently. Instinctively, he tried to leap away, only to discover in horror that he could not move. In that instant, he felt exactly what Zhong Ying had felt before him: disbelief, terror, despair. He was a dignified cultivator at the 3rd level of the integration realm, yet a single hand pressed him down so completely that he could not even twitch. Zhong Wang shifted his eyes sideways. A figure stood beside him, its entire body radiating demonic energy. The newcomer was Guan, currently using the 9 Extremes Yin-Yang body. Purple-black demonic mist rolled around him, concealing his form so thoroughly that Zhong Wang could not make out his appearance at all. This stronghold was protected by more than 100 formations and restrictions. Yet with the 9 Extremes Yin-Yang body and the limitless free step, Guan had moved through them as though walking through an empty field. In a single step, he had entered without causing the slightest disturbance. Even the surveillance formations had failed to notice the intrusion. With one hand pinning Zhong Wang in place, Guan turned his gaze towards Su Han. Su Han's cultivation had already reached the 9th level of foundation establishment, yet his maximum lifespan had not increased at all. It remained fixed at 199 years. An ordinary 9th level foundation establishment cultivator should have lived well beyond 200 years. It seemed the heaven-hating divine sword truly possessed the potential to surpass ordinary limits, but even it could not break the boundary imposed by one's own heavenly mandate. No wonder those who cultivated the heaven-hating divine sword advanced at terrifying speed, only to become increasingly prone to chi deviation and madness in the later stages. Su Han had not sensed Guan's arrival either. He was entirely focused on cultivation. Guan looked at Zhong Wang and prepared to use a soul-searching art. Almost by reflex, he activated lifespan detection first. So it was you after all. Then die. Guan tightened his right hand. Terrifying Great Ascension realm spiritual power poured straight into Zhong Wang's body, annihilating him in an instant. Flesh and soul alike were reduced to ash. A violent gust struck Su Han's face, causing him to open his eyes instinctively. The next instant, his pupils contracted. He sprang to his feet and snatched up the white jade sword beside him. "Who are you?" Su Han demanded, pointing the blade at Guan. Where was his master? How had he vanished so suddenly? Fear flooded Su Han's heart. Guan's figure was terrifying enough on its own, and in the darkness of this underground cellar, it was even more oppressive. An overwhelming pressure erupted from Guan's body. Su Han's mind went blank at once, and he collapsed backward into the pool. Guan turned and walked toward the nearby passage, his silhouette disappearing into darkness. Several away, in a vast underground chamber shrouded in gloom, stood a colossal tree nearly 100 jang tall. Its leaves were crimson as blood. Countless vines hung from its branches, and every vine bound a person beneath it. The vines were wrapped tightly around their necks, leaving them unable to escape. Their bodies shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye. Many had already been drained into dry corpses. The entire scene was horrifying beyond words, dark and oppressive to the extreme. Beneath the enormous tree stood groups of Epiphyllum Cult members on guard. Each group escorted captured cultivators, men and women alike. Talismans covered the prisoners' bodies, sealing their spiritual power and leaving them as helpless as ordinary mortals. There were more than 1,000 prisoners in total, while a little over 100 Epiphyllum Cult members guarded the chamber. Every prisoner stared despairingly at the blood-drinking tree. "That thing is a demon. A demon. You'll all die miserable deaths. You tricked me into joining the cult, and now you're feeding me to this cursed tree. Is it a demon beast or some kind of devil? Damn you!" Some cursed, some wailed, some begged for mercy. Their voices only made the already sinister underground chamber feel even more terrifying. A beautiful, female demonic cultivator snorted coldly. "The victor becomes king and the loser becomes a bandit. What are you screaming for? None of you are good people either. For all you know, heaven itself may think we're ridding the world of evil." As she spoke, she lifted a man beside her, pressed her mouth to his forehead, and began devouring his vitality. The man's complexion withered rapidly, the light fading from his eyes. Whoosh, a cold wind passed through the chamber. The female cultivator glanced instinctively at the weeds around her feet. The grass trembled. Before she could react, shh! The blades of grass suddenly shot upward and pierced straight through the center of her brow. Blood burst across her face. She was not the only one. At almost the same instant, the other Epiphyllum Cult demonic cultivators were slaughtered by the surrounding grass. No matter how high their cultivation, every one of them died on the spot. The prisoners stared in shock. Then, as though they had realized something, they all turned toward the darkness. A lone figure was walking toward them. "Demonic shadow divine art." Someone from Qian cried out in delight. The words had barely left his mouth when Guan suddenly accelerated. His body became a series of afterimages as he swept past every prisoner and appeared beneath the massive tree. The prisoners seemed to have been struck by a body-freezing spell. Every one of them stood rigid and unmoving. One breath later, they all turned to ash at the same time. Guan looked up. A series of notifications appeared before his eyes. Epiphyllum tree, 8th rank, 340, 42,000, 23,000. 8th rank. No wonder the Cang Dynasty tree had been so afraid of it. The bark along the Epiphyllum tree's main trunk began to split apart. A gigantic human face slowly emerged from the wood. Only its features could be seen, making it impossible to tell whether it was male or female. Yet its expression was unmistakably greedy, cold, and sinister. The hanging vines rose as one and shot toward Guan. Xing, the piercing sound of a sword, leaving its sheath, echoed throughout the underground chamber. The Epiphyllum tree was cleaved cleanly in two. Its countless vines came crashing down like a torrential rain. The enormous greedy face was split apart as well, its expression frozen in place. Then both halves of the trunk began to collapse from within as streams of sword chi erupted outward in a magnificent storm. Guan slid the Tianzu sword back into its sheath, tossed it into his storage pouch, and ignited the remains of the Epiphyllum tree with spiritual flame. Notifications of harvested lifespan began appearing one after another before him. An 8th rank spirit tree was indeed powerful. Judging by its aura alone, it was no weaker than an integration realm cultivator. Unfortunately for it, its opponent had been a great ascension cultivator. At noon the next day, Guan stepped down from the teleportation platform in the 3rd Medicine Valley. He was in an excellent mood. The previous night had earned him more than 40,000 years of lifespan, and the Epiphyllum tree alone had contributed 5,000. At that Epiphyllum Cult stronghold, Su Han had been the only survivor. Once Guan discovered that the prisoners were demonic cultivators as well, he had shown no mercy. He eliminated them all, silencing every witness and leaving no future trouble behind. The moment he stepped off the formation platform, he sensed the auras of Lu Baitian, Gu Zong, and Xianxia. All three were waiting for him inside the pavilion. Guan headed over immediately. As soon as he climbed upstairs, the door opened. He stepped across the threshold and was just about to bow when Gu Zong waved his sleeve, shut the door behind him, and set up another restriction. Their expressions were grim. Guan assumed the Epiphyllum Cult was about to attack. Even so, he did not panic. Once the cult discovered that the Epiphyllum tree had been destroyed, they would surely have far more pressing matters than dealing with the Tai Xuan Sect. Lu Baitian looked terrible. His entire body seemed weak, and his face was deathly pale. He looked at Guan and said through gritted teeth, "There is a cruel piece of bad news I need to tell you." "What bad news?" Guan asked. Sensing how weak Lu Baitian's aura had become, he immediately used lifespan detection. Lu Baitian 9th level integration realm. 764 2050 3200. At first glance, the numbers did not seem too different. Wait, his lifespan had dropped by more than 1,000 years. Guan clearly remembered that Lu Baitian's previous lifespan had been 3,150 years. Had he failed his tribulation? Guan was secretly shocked. No wonder, during cultivation simulations, every failed breakthrough forced him to wait many years before attempting another tribulation. Reality worked the same way, except that in reality, failure could simply kill you. Even if one survived, it was impossible to challenge the heavenly tribulation again and again without pause. Lu Baitian took a deep breath. "I failed my tribulation. I could not break through to the next realm. I may need many years of recuperation before I can even recover my peak cultivation." Guan's expression changed dramatically. He stepped forward at once, visibly agitated. "Sect Master, are you all right? You must take care of yourself. The Tai Xuan Sect cannot do without you." A smile finally appeared on Lu Baitian's gloomy face. Gu Zong looked pleased as well. Xianxia, on the other hand, looked irritated. "What do you mean the sect can't do without him? If he dies, I'm still here. Is it really all right to be that direct?" Guan wondered inwardly, though his face remained full of concern. "Don't worry, I won't die," Lu Baitian said with a sigh. "But as for reaching a higher realm in this lifetime, that will be extremely difficult. If I fail again next time, I truly may lose my life." As he remembered the tribulation, lingering fear showed clearly on his face. Guan could not help asking, "Is a heavenly tribulation really that terrifying? Even a grand cultivator like you has no way around it?" Xianxia said quietly. The fact that he was even capable of attempting it already places him above nearly every living being in the 9 dynasties. Countless humans and demons cultivate their entire lives without ever touching the integration realm. Gu Zong nodded and laughed self-deprecatingly. "I haven't even reached the integration realm myself." Guan drew a deep breath and gave a bitter smile. "Forget the integration realm. I haven't even reached core formation." His publicly displayed cultivation was still only at foundation establishment. "Don't worry, Lu Baitian said grandly, waving his sleeve. Even if I have to pile pills and heavenly treasures into you, I can push you into core formation. Reaching nascent soul, however, will depend on your own fortune and opportunities. Even the sect cannot guarantee that. He paused, then added, of course, you have another option. Become my disciple, and I will directly pass all of my cultivation on to you. Here we go again. Guan was just about to refuse when Xianxia interrupted impatiently. Stop thinking about passing on your cultivation. The Epiphyllum Cult is circling us like a predator. They might launch a surprise attack tomorrow for all we know. Even if he inherited your cultivation, he wouldn't possess your combat strength. Right now, the Tai Xuan Sect truly cannot afford to lose you. Guzong nodded. I've already contacted the Supreme Elders. I don't know how many will be able to return. The conversation shifted to the Supreme Elders, and Lu Baitian's attention was drawn away. It turned out that the Supreme Elders who left the Tai Xuan Sect had all departed in search of opportunities to break through beyond the integration realm. Since ancient times, only 1 in 10 of those who left had ever returned. And among those who returned, only 1 in 10 had successfully broken through. They merely came back to spend their final years in peace. Xianxia then mentioned the sect's eldest true disciple. In his view, that person was the cultivator within the Tai Xuan Sect most likely to surpass the integration realm, even more likely than the Supreme Elders. That made Guan curious about the talent of this mysterious eldest true disciple, whom everyone in the sect spoke of with such respect and expectation. Guan stood quietly to the side, listening and learning more about the history of the Tai Xuan Sect. After half an hour, the three finally finished talking. The most important reason we came today is this, Xianxia said seriously. In the near future, we will send you even more high-grade seeds. You must take good care of them. This concerns the future of the Tai Xuan Sect and the coming war with the Epiphyllum Cult. More seeds? The more the better. Guan immediately promised. No matter how many you send, I will devote myself to caring for them. I won't neglect a single one. Guzong laughed heartily. That's the spirit I like. None of the other Medicine Valley masters are as diligent as you. Some neglect their duties. Others skim resources for themselves. You've done very well. In the future, we'll promote you to an intersect disciple. Guan hurriedly bowed in thanks. After that, Lu Baitian and the other two rose to leave. The moment Lu Baitian stepped out of the pavilion, his expression returned to normal. As sect master, he could not allow the disciples to see him looking weak. Guan followed downstairs and watched the three disappear into the distance. He felt a little regretful. He had really wanted to ask Xianxia when that promised 7th rank spirit tree was finally going to arrive. News of the Epiphyllum tree's destruction never spread through the cultivation world. Nor did news of Lu Baitian's failed tribulation. At the very least, when Yilan later came to see Guan, she mentioned neither matter. When the new year arrived, Yilan was unable to attend the celebrations. The Law Enforcement Hall had recently received an important assignment that would keep her away on a mission for several months. Guan stood on the balcony and watched her figure recede into the distance. Only after she vanished into the curtain of falling snow did he look away. Then he noticed Yang Ni emerging from the forest. When she passed beneath his pavilion, he called down, "You said the Epiphyllum Cult has no real foundation, yet they can still attract so many cultivators. Are cultivators under heaven really that foolish?" Yang Ni stopped and looked up at him. Perhaps the Epiphyllum Cult has something they desperately want. Maybe. But to me, it sounds more like a trap. The Outer Sect's Demon Extermination Hall was the same. Lu Jujiao once trusted them, thinking they could put him on a grand road straight to the heavens. In the end, they nearly ruined him. Guan spoke with a sigh and shook his head. No matter where you look, everyone under heaven is trapped by a single word struggle. My Medicine Valley is still the best. There is nothing here worth fighting over. With that, he turned and went back inside. Yang Ni frowned. She had the distinct feeling that Guan was hinting at her. If he had already guessed that she was connected to the Epiphyllum Cult, why not simply say it outright? After thinking for a while, Yang Ni decided to find Lu Jujia and talk with him. She wanted to know exactly what Guan had been referring to. Winter snow drifted through the air. At long last, the 7th rank spirit tree promised by the Ji clan arrived. Pure Yang tree, 7th rank, 289,964,000. Guan carried the sapling, which was already taller than he was, and began searching for a suitable place to plant it. In the end, he chose the open ground directly in front of his pavilion. He immediately called the disciples over to clear away the snow and dig the soil. When word spread that this was a 7th rank spirit tree, disciples crowded around to watch the excitement. Although the pure Yang tree was still only a young sapling, the moment its roots entered the earth, the snow around it began to melt. Warmth spread through the area as though a tree of living flame had been planted there. This pure Yang tree was Guan's personal treasure. Listening to the disciples marvel over it, filled him with a powerful sense of accomplishment. Then his gaze shifted toward the distance. Cultivators were flying over the mountain peaks on swords, approaching at high speed. At their head was Lu Songhan, the Grand Elder of the Outer Sect. Behind him came 200 servant disciples in the Qi refining realm, every one of them at the 7th level of Qi refining or higher. Why is she here? Guan spotted the ascender Lu Lingjun among the disciples behind Lu Songhan. On the surface, she displayed only the 8th level of Qi refining. She hid herself extremely well. Who could possibly imagine that this humble servant disciple was, in truth, a 9th level integration realm grand cultivator on the same level as Lu Baitian? If the two truly fought, Guan was not even certain Lu Baitian would win. Lu Baitian was only a little over 700 years old. Lu Lingjun, meanwhile, was an old monster approaching 2,000. After landing, Lu Songhan cupped his hands and smiled. Brother Gu, these are 200 servant disciples I selected especially for you to assign as you please. The higher-ups have already approved it. Servant disciples had been chosen because it would be difficult for them to steal medicinal herbs from this place. After all, the Third Medicine Valley lay within inner sect territory, with an outer sect city positioned nearby as another layer of security. Safety was not the real concern. The valley simply needed manpower. Guan stepped forward to greet Lu Songhan. Standing among the crowd, Lu Lingjun quietly studied Guan with curiosity. A Foundation establishment cultivator could address a nascent soul cultivator as an equal brother? Just what kind of background did this man have? The other servant disciples were thrilled. This Medicine Valley lay in intersect territory. To them, merely being assigned here was a tremendous opportunity. After Lu Songhan left, Guan called Xiaochuan over and instructed him to arrange accommodations for the 200 newcomers. He deliberately avoided paying much attention to Lu Lingjun. He did not want to become too deeply entangled in karma with an ascender. That same day, the new servant disciples erected their pavilions, and then began exploring the Third Medicine Valley on their own. When Lu Lingjun discovered that the valley actually contained 2 7th-rank spirit trees, she was deeply shocked. Before ascending, she had once seen a 7th-rank spirit tree, more than 20,000 years old, so enormous that it dwarfed an entire mountain. The foundations of the Tai Xuan Sect were truly frightening. She had to establish herself here, and so, over the following days, Lu Lingjun displayed almost frightening diligence. She worked so hard that even Guan could no longer pretend not to notice her. After the new year, Guan instructed Xiaochuan to select 10 people as Medicine Valley stewards, responsible for managing the other servant disciples. Lu Lingjun was among the 10 chosen. Her eyes shone brightly as she looked at Guan, and the intensity of that gaze made him uncomfortable. She was already exceptionally beautiful. There was not a single female disciple in the valley more striking than her. On top of that, her performance had been outstanding. If Guan deliberately ignored her, it would only attract suspicion. He stood before the 10 new stewards, offered a few words of encouragement, and dismissed them. But Lu Lingjun stepped forward again. In a low voice, she said, "Valley Master, there is something I wish to report. May I speak with you inside your room?" Guan hesitated briefly, then nodded and led her toward the pavilion. The other stewards had not yet gone far. They watched Lu Lingjun with a mixture of envy and jealousy. Beauty was a kind of capital too, after all. Once inside, Lu Lingjun shut the door. Guan walked over to his writing desk, sat down, and casually flipped open the copy of Xianxia Travels lying on the table. Lu Lingjun approached the desk, drew a secret manual from inside her robe and offered it to him. Guan glanced at the title. 9 Revolutions Golden Body Art. What an intimidating name. Lu Lingjun introduced it softly. This is my family's inherited cultivation art. I hope the Valley Master will not disdain it. Guan frowned. What are you doing? Put that away at once. What would people think if they saw this? Lu Lingjun understood immediately. She tucked the 9 Revolutions Golden Body Art back into her robe, then took a magical artifact out of her storage pouch. I said don't do anything improper, so she swapped it for a bottle of pills, explaining that they could strengthen blood vitality and meridians. Guan shot to his feet in anger and scolded her in a low voice, almost as though he feared the disciples outside might overhear. Are you using these things to test me? Are you questioning my devotion to the Tai Xuan Sect? Lu Lingjun cursed him inwardly for being greedy. Then something suddenly occurred to her. She pulled out a long white jade bottle from her storage pouch. This is heavenly spirit water. Don't be fooled by the fact that there is only one bottle. If poured onto the ground, it can gather spiritual energy and form an entire lake. The lake water can transform the surrounding soil and accelerate the growth of nearby heavenly treasures. Each year, it can even condense spirit pearls that may be swallowed directly or used in alchemy. Guan listened, then accepted the bottle from her hand. His expression became solemn. This must not happen again. Now tell me, what do you want? Whatever it is, it cannot harm the interests of the Tai Xuan Sect. Lu Lingjun smiled. "Valley Master, may I cultivate beneath the Xuanqing tree?" She had stopped beneath the Xuanqing tree before and noticed an extremely fat, white spirit mouse. The chubby creature looked as though it were sleeping, but with Lu Lingjun's eyesight, she could tell that it had entered some mysterious state of Tao comprehension. The Xuanqing tree? Guan had not expected Lu Lingjun to discover its mysteries so quickly. This was not something he considered forbidden. On the contrary, it gave him several new ideas. In the future, perhaps he could use access to the Xuanqing tree as a whip to make the disciples work harder. After thinking for a moment, Guan said, "Fine, but you may only go there after nightfall, and you must leave once day breaks. The Xuanqing tree belongs to the sect. Many grand cultivators covet it. Understand?" Lu Lingjun hurriedly bowed in thanks. Watching this 9th-level integration realm grand cultivator behave so respectfully before him left Guan somewhat emotional. Was he truly any different from her? Even with great cultivation, both of them still acted with extreme caution. The reason was simple. Neither was satisfied with their present position. Both believed they could go much farther. They exchanged a few more words, then Lu Lingjun took her leave. After closing the door behind her, she descended the stairs, silently wondering, what kind of book is Xianxia Travels? Even the 9 Revolutions golden body art couldn't compare with it in his eyes. Guan had moved quickly, but she had still managed to glimpse the title of the book in that brief instant. She decided that the next time she visited the outer sect city, she would investigate it. Ever since arriving in the vast world of Tianling, Lu Lingjun had been curious about everything around her while remaining deeply wary. That was why she had chosen to begin as a lowly servant disciple first, learning how this world worked. Then climbing upward step by step. Her goal was to become an elder of the Tai Xuan Sect. The third Medicine Valley was merely a stepping stone. As she walked away, a thought inevitably crossed her mind. What cultivation did the sect master of the Tai Xuan Sect possess? Surely it had to be higher than hers? Late that night, in the North Sea mountain range, a violent storm howled through the darkness, snowflakes whirling in the wind. Guan sat in meditation beneath a tree and slowly opened his eyes. A sharp brilliance flashed within them. He had just spent 100,000 years of lifespan to upgrade the Ji clan's divine ability, Heaven-Earth Daogang. It evolved twice in succession, from Heaven-Earth Daogang into the Heaven-Earth Tyrant body, and then again into Daogang Primordial Qi. Once Daogang Primordial Qi was mastered, invisible and formless primordial energy would automatically protect the body. Evil entities would find it nearly impossible to invade. It could resist and dissolve all kinds of spells and divine abilities, and Guan could also control it offensively. It was both shield and weapon. Guan began refining the Daogang Primordial Qi. He had already inherited the memories from the lifespan evolution, so he only needed to circulate the technique once in reality to master it. Half an hour later, he succeeded. He could now compress the Daogang Primordial Qi into an invisible layer just beyond his skin. Others could still touch him, but they would be unable to injure him. Guan now had 430,000 years of lifespan remaining. He hesitated over whether to continue upgrading the Taichung Divine Shocking Sword. The Taikong Divine Shocking Sword was already extremely powerful. Improving it further did not seem particularly meaningful. His instincts told him that if he upgraded the Wood Spirit Sword art instead, it might eventually surpass the Taikong Divine Shocking Sword because his cultivation technique was aligned with the wood element and he still lacked a complete 5 elements method. But he already had one sword art. Learning another did not seem worthwhile. It might be better to pour everything into a single path. Perhaps 100 years from now, looking back, 100,000 years of lifespan would seem trivial to him. There was still time to develop the Wood Spirit Sword art later. Forget it. He would improve other spells and divine abilities first. Truthfully, with Guan's cultivation at the 8th level of the Great Ascension realm, virtually any spell in his hands could unleash power enough to crush a profound heart realm cultivator. And he had no intention of recklessly challenging enemies above his own realm, so upgrading spells and divine abilities now was really preparation for his future breakthroughs. After considering his options, Guan decided to improve the Spirit-Gathering Divine Finger that Lu Baitian had taught him. The Spirit-Gathering Divine Finger had one extremely special trait. It did not merely gather the user's own spiritual power. It could also draw in the spiritual energy of the surrounding world. In other words, it borrowed the power of heaven and earth. A bold idea appeared in Guan's mind. During the lifespan evolution, could he borrow the power of heaven and earth and shatter a heavenly tribulation with a single finger? The mere thought made his heart race. Hopefully his simulated self would be clever enough to try it. Guan immediately spent another 100,000 years of lifespan upgrading the Spirit-Gathering Divine Finger. The Spirit-Gathering Divine Finger evolved into the Heaven-Supporting Finger, and then again into the Tao-Breaking Divine Light, a vast flood of memories poured into Guan's mind, drawing him completely into the experience. The finger art underwent a total transformation. No longer could it be released only through a finger. Now it could be unleashed through any part of his body. The spiritual energy throughout the North Sea mountain range continued to sink, causing living beings everywhere to discuss the strange phenomenon. By now, they had grown used to these sudden drops in spiritual energy. They were no longer afraid, only curious about what was causing them. Another half-hour passed. Guan opened his eyes, privately amazed. The Tao-breaking divine light was truly domineering. This spell specialized in destroying formations, restrictions, defensive spells, and protective divine abilities. It could also obliterate an enemy directly, leaving body and Tao alike extinguished, dead beyond recovery. Cultivation utterly erased. This upgrade had absolutely been worth it. Guan smiled. Then he dispelled the lifespan barrier and headed deeper into the forest. Dawn was still far away. He planned to enjoy the scenery of North Sea for a while, and, while he was at it, pay Liya a visit. Liya was still at the edge of North Sea, bitterly practicing the Tai Kang Divine Shocking Sword. When Guan had taught him the sword art, he had also infused a strand of sword intent into the North Sea heavy sword, allowing it to guide Liya's cultivation. With that sword intent showing him the way, Liya's progress had become astonishingly fast, though it still fell far short of the comprehension Guan gained during lifespan evolution. The trees of the North Sea mountain range towered so high that anyone walking beneath them felt strangely small. Demonic energy filled the forest. Along the way, Guan saw all kinds of spirit beasts, including creatures like the white spirit mouse. Some were adorable, others were hideous beyond description. While Guan leisurely enjoyed the scenery 10,000 away, beside the waters of North Sea, Liya stood bare-chested beneath the bright moon, swinging the North Sea heavy sword again and again. Ripples spread across the lake, a full moon hung high overhead, and snow drifted through the air like falling stars. Liya's entire body was drenched in sweat. His muscles tightened with every swing, radiating raw physical power. Putting aside how well you've learned the Tai Kang Divine Shocking Sword, your body has already completely fused with the Dragon Elephant Divine Essence. Your physical strength is now comparable to a 4th-rank demon beast. The voice of the old ancestor sounded inside him, filled with praise. Liya's lips curved slightly, but he said nothing and continued practicing. In his mind, he had already begun imagining the day he defeated Lu Shen Zhou Tongyo and Ji Xiaoyu. He wanted the 100 races to marvel at his name. He wanted to restore the Li clan to its former peak. Not bad. What a frightening junior indeed. A voice suddenly came from nearby. Liya spun around in alarm. A man dressed like a scholar was walking toward him across the sand. He wore white robes, carried a book chest on his back, and had a cloth cap on his head. In one hand he held a folding fan. Under the moonlight, the sight of him gave Liya the eerie impression of a ghost. Liya frowned. What do you want? After spending so many years in the North Sea mountain range, he had encountered demon beasts, evil entities, and all manner of strange creatures. By now, very little could frighten him. The white-robed scholar smiled. I come from the Epiphyllum Cult. You may call me Xianxia. I saw your swordsmanship and found it quite impressive. Your vitality far exceeds others at your realm. You clearly have the potential to become someone great. Why not join the Epiphyllum Cult with me? The Epiphyllum Cult. Liya's brow tightened. Over the past 2 years, the Epiphyllum Cult fought repeated battles against numerous demonic factions throughout the North Sea mountain range. Naturally, he had witnessed some of them himself. He refused immediately. I am a disciple of the Tai Xuan Sect. Thank you for the offer. He was still proud to belong to the Tai Xuan Sect. In his eyes, how could an obscure cult of unknown origins like the Epiphyllum Cult compare with a great orthodox sect such as the Tai Xuan Sect? Xianxia narrowed his eyes with a smile. Many cultivators within the Tai Xuan Sect have already joined our cult, even elders. Sooner or later, the Tai Xuan Sect will be replaced by the Epiphyllum Cult. Joining us early is simply the wiser path. Liya's expression turned cold. He raised his sword and pointed it at Xianxia. So I don't actually have the right to refuse? Seeing the sword rise, Xianxia laughed. Junior, do you really think you can act without fear just because you carry the soul of a grand cultivator inside your body? The instant the words fell, he lunged straight at Liya. Liya's expression changed, and he hurriedly raised his sword to block. Guan wandered through the mountain forest for several hours. Only when dawn was approaching did he activate the limitless free step and leave. He arrived at the beach where Liya had been cultivating. From a distance, he saw Liya sitting limply before a reef, his head buried in his arms. The North Sea heavy sword lay abandoned on the sand, waves repeatedly washing over it. Something was wrong. Guan sensed carefully and immediately discovered that the soul inside Liya's body was gone. He walked toward him at once. Only when Guan drew close did Liya finally hear the footsteps. He slowly raised his head. The moment he saw Guan shrouded in demonic energy, His face changed drastically. He sprang to his feet, hurried forward, and dropped to his knees. "Ancestor! Please save my old ancestor." Xianxia of the Epiphyllum Cult took him away. Liya spoke in a rush, his voice still thick with choked sobs. The reason he felt like crying was simple. He truly believed Guan was the founding ancestor of the Li clan. Now, standing before his own ancestral figure, all the emotions he had been holding back finally collapsed once. Guan asked in a deep, hoarse voice, "What happened?" At the same time, he released his divine sense and searched for traces of the soul that had once been inside Liya. He had never met Xianxia and therefore could not directly search for him. So instead, he looked for the aura of that soul. Liya began recounting everything that had happened. Xianxia had defeated him with humiliating ease, then taken away the soul within his body. Before leaving, he declared that if Liya wanted the soul back, he would have to join the Epiphyllum Cult and find him there. After years of bitter cultivation, Liya had believed himself completely transformed. Yet before Xianxia, he had been unable to put up even the slightest resistance. His confidence had been crushed beneath the man's feet. Guan could not locate the soul's aura either. Xianxia had likely concealed it. Even so, Guan did not panic. If he investigated carefully enough, he would find Xianxia eventually. Then Guan suddenly asked, "Why didn't you find a safe place to practice your sword? Why stay here without even setting up a formation?" In Guan's eyes, Liya was good in almost every respect. He had only one major flaw: he was far too reckless. Because he had an old grandpa spirit living inside him, he constantly took foolish risks and repeatedly got himself injured. This incident was a perfect opportunity to temper him. Liya tried to answer, but the shame was too overwhelming. He could not explain himself. The truth was that he had chosen this place precisely because it would attract demon beasts and evil entities to attack him. He wanted to improve himself through real combat. Of course, the only reason he had dared to do that was because the old ancestor's soul had always been inside him. "You keep escaping death," Guan said. "But have you ever thought about what burden that places on him?" Liya remembered how often the old ancestor had scolded him for causing trouble. His guilt deepened until he wished the earth would open and swallow him. Then Guan said something unexpected. "Join the Epiphyllum Cult." Liya snapped his head up and stared at the ancestor he had accepted in disbelief. Guan continued indifferently. "The Epiphyllum Cult harms all living beings. Infiltrate them. At the end of every month, go to the top of a mountain and release your aura. I will find you. Once the Epiphyllum Cult gathers in force, I will make my move." Liya hurriedly said, "But isn't that incredibly dangerous? The entire demonic path couldn't defeat the Epiphyllum Cult. I've heard they have beings above the void-crossing realm. And not just one," Guan asked in return. "Is the void-crossing realm supposed to be strong?" Liya froze. In the end, he agreed to join the Epiphyllum Cult. Guan did not comfort him much. He maintained the image of a mysterious and unfathomable senior. After leaving the North Sea mountain range, Guan returned to Xuan Valley. From that point onward, he prepared to begin a long-term plan of accumulating lifespan. His immediate goal was simple: 10 million years. At last, the bitter winter passed and the spring festival arrived. Across every province of the Tai Cang Dynasty, people celebrated with lanterns and decorations. Even the Tai Xuan Sect began holding its New Year festivities. One day, Guan brought Xiaochuan and Lu Lingjun with him to stroll through the outer sect. Lu Lingjun was extremely interested in the New Year celebrations. In fact, she had personally requested permission to visit the outer city this time. Considering how extraordinary the Heavenly Spirit Lake formed from her Heavenly Spirit water had proven to be, Guan had gained a favorable impression of her and agreed to bring her along. Lu Baitian had just failed his tribulation. If Guan could persuade Lu Lingjun to truly become a cultivator of the Tai Xuan Sect, perhaps she could help shelter him from storms in the future. Guan's own foundations were beginning to take shape. The stronger the Tai Xuan Sect became, the more peacefully he could remain hidden within it. And in recent years, the sect had genuinely been changing for the better. Dark incidents had become increasingly rare, which caused Guan's loyalty toward the Tai Xuan Sect to grow as well. The moment they reached the outer sect city, Xiaochuan went off on his own. He had friends in the city too. Guan brought Lu Lingjun to Heaven Mending Platform. He wanted her to see the two characters carved there, Righteous Tao. When Guan had carved those two characters, he had only just reached the integration realm. That was also one reason the demonic path had become increasingly wary of Lu Baitian. The sword intent on Heaven Mending Platform was powerful, but not so unbelievable that an integration realm cultivator could never have produced it, especially since Guan had carved the characters from a distance. So many years have passed, yet the sword intent left behind by Sword Venerable Fu Dao still attracts so many cultivators to come and contemplate it. Truly impressive, Guan said with feeling. Lu Lingjun had already seen the words Righteous Tao when she first arrived at the Tai Xuan Sect. She nodded. It truly is impressive. In her original world, she had never encountered sword intent this powerful. That alone had filled her with anticipation toward the Tai Xuan Sect. If even the outer sect possessed sword intent like this, what kind of foundations must the inner sect hold? And beyond that, there was still the sect's main city, which stood even higher in status. The mere thought excited Lu Lingjun. She increasingly believed that somewhere within the Tai Xuan Sect, she would find the method to break through into a higher realm. Guan, however, saw only her calm reaction and the somewhat casual tone of her answer. Oh no, she looked down on his sword intent. Could she actually be confident that she could defeat him when he was at the integration realm? The thought immediately deflated much of Guan's pride. There were countless talented people under heaven, and Lu Lingjun had fought her way out of an entirely different world to become an exceptional figure. He could not afford to underestimate her, or anyone else in the world. Guan continued observing heaven-mending platform while quietly using lifespan detection on unfamiliar cultivators nearby. Because it was New Year, there were fewer people on the platform than usual. Most cultivators were wandering through the city, relaxing their Dao hearts and enjoying the festival. Valley Master, may I walk around by myself? Lu Lingjun asked. That wounded Guan even more. Was his sword intent really that uninteresting to her? Go ahead, meet me back here at dusk, he said with a nod. At the same time, he secretly made up his mind. He absolutely had to keep Lu Lingjun in the Tai Xuan Sect. Someone that formidable ought to be serving the Tai Xuan Sect. Wait, why was he suddenly thinking like a sect master? This was all Lu Baitian's fault. Guan shook his head and turned toward the alchemy hall. He had many friends in the outer sect city, most of them in the alchemy hall and the scripture pavilion. In recent years, every time he came here, he would find a few old friends, share a few cups of wine, and listen to them talk about their cultivation journeys. He genuinely enjoyed this peaceful, leisurely kind of life. Elsewhere, Lu Lingjun wandered through the city until someone suddenly blocked her path. Young lady, I've got some excellent books here. Why not buy one? Plenty of female disciples are reading them. The disciple spoke mysteriously, glancing left and right as though terrified someone might catch him. Lu Lingjun raised an eyebrow. Do you know Xianxia travels? The bookseller's eyes immediately lit up. Ah, a true connoisseur! The moment I saw your extraordinary bearing, I knew you understood this path deeply. I do indeed have Xianxia Travels. Buy one volume of the Tai Xuan Secret Chronicle, and I'll give you 2 volumes of Xianxia Travels for free. Oh? How many volumes of Xianxia Travels are there in total? Quite a lot. Do you want the whole set? Then how about this 200 low-grade spirit stones? Buy 10 volumes of the Tai Xuan Secret Chronicle, and I'll throw in the complete collection of Xianxia Travels. Deal. The two quickly completed the transaction. The moment it was done, the disciple hurried away like a thief fleeing the scene of a crime. Lu Lingjun felt vaguely cheated. How could some peerless secret manual or hidden scripture possibly be this cheap? Still, 200 low-grade spirit stones meant nothing to her. She put all the books into her storage pouch and decided to read them once she returned to the valley. When Guan entered the alchemy hall, he spotted a familiar face. It was Anjin, the disciple he had previously accepted in the outer sect. Anshin's aptitude was ordinary, so she could only remain in the outer sect. And Hao had not forgotten her, however, and would occasionally send her various pills. Unfortunately, even with that assistance, her cultivation still advanced very slowly. The two had been born in the same village, yet after stepping onto the immortal path, the distance between them had become as vast as heaven and earth. Guan could not help feeling that heaven was unfair, and Xin was currently doing odd jobs in the alchemy hall. She felt she could not rely on Anhao forever. She wanted to stand on her own feet through her own efforts. Guan watched her weakly trying to deal with a male disciple, who was deliberately making things difficult for her. He sighed inwardly. Should he simply support her for the rest of her life? Although Guan valued Anhao more highly, Anzin was still his disciple too, and if he did nothing, he suspected that one day Anzin might die because of Anhao. As Anhao's cultivation rose, his enemies would only become more numerous and more powerful. Sooner or later, someone would identify his greatest weakness, Anshin. With that thought, Guan walked over. The troublesome male disciple saw him approaching, and immediately put on a flattering smile before bowing. Guan carried considerable status inside the alchemy hall. He came every month, and the disciples who frequented the place all knew that he was on good terms with several alchemy hall elders. After sending the disciple away, Guan looked at Anshin. Valley Master Gu, what do you need? And Sin asked nervously. She understood Guan's status far better than the ordinary outer sect disciples around her. This was a man who could sit and laugh with the sect master himself. Previously, when Lu Baitian had taken Anhao to speak with Guan, Anhao had used the opportunity to bring Anshin into the Third Medicine Valley, so the two had met before. Guan had not spoken with her then, but Anzin remembered him very clearly. Your name is Nzin, right? Guan asked with a smile. Would you like to come back with me to the Third Medicine Valley? If you're going to do odd jobs anyway, the treatment is better there, and it will be easier for you to see Anhao in the future. I'm quite close with your senior brother. Xin hesitated. Guan saw through her thoughts. In a meaningful tone, he said, wanting to rely on yourself is a good thing, but there's no need to prove yourself by deliberately making life harder. This would be good for you and good for Anhao. What is there to hesitate about? Nzin remained silent. For the first time, Guan realized just how stubborn this girl could be. He lowered his voice. I have a cultivation art that may be able to change one's aptitude. If you perform well in the Medicine Valley, I'll teach it to you. He was referring to the Tao evolution art that Wu Xin had given him. The method worked by accumulating spiritual energy while suppressing one's cultivation, allowing that long accumulation to erupt all at once and defy fate itself. Wu Xin's explanation had been extremely vague, however, and Guan had not yet verified whether the technique truly worked. Hearing this, Njin finally wavered. She lightly bit her lip. Thank you, Valley Master Gu. Should I go pack my things now? No need to arrange any handover with the Alchemy Hall. I'll take care of that. Just go back and gather your belongings. I'll wait here for you. There's no need to rush, just return before dusk. Guan smiled. Instinctively, he nearly reached out to pat her head but stopped himself in time. She was already grown now. That kind of gesture would be inappropriate, especially since the two had not openly acknowledged their true master-disciple relationship. Nzin smiled, bowed to him, and left. Guan watched her back with deep emotion. Once Nzin had been tiny as a beansprout, thin and fragile. Now she had grown into a tall, beautiful young woman. The sight filled him with quiet happiness. After leaving through the door, Nzin let out a long breath. What kind of smile was that? He doesn't have some bad intention toward me, does he? A trace of worry rose in her heart. Then she remembered that the Third Medicine Valley was full of disciples. Even if Guan did harbor improper thoughts, he probably would not dare do anything there. That helped her relax. Once they returned to the Third Medicine Valley, Guan asked Lu Lingjun to arrange Anjin's accommodations. If the two became close, perhaps Lu Lingjun might even give Anjin some guidance. That arrangement also made Anjin breathe a sigh of relief. Guan had noticed her nervousness on the road, but he did not think much of it. Soon afterward, he used the teleportation platform to return to Xuan Valley. Once back, he summoned Chu Jingfeng and Lu Jujia and formally taught them the Tao evolution art. By the time Guan finished explaining its effects, both men were breathing heavily with excitement. Lu Jujia was the first to recover. He dropped to his knees and bowed deeply before Guan. Chu Jingfeng gritted his teeth but did not kneel. Guan hurriedly pulled Lu Jujia back to his feet. He did not need people kneeling before him. Kneeling was not the only way to prove loyalty. These two could serve as perfect test cases for the Tao evolution art. If the results were good, he would let Njin cultivate it as well. After the two left, Guan took out the latest volume of Xianxia Travels and began reading. So many years had passed, yet Xianxia Travels was still releasing new volumes. Guan genuinely admired the author. Did this person never cultivate? How could anyone spend every single year wandering outside and traveling? Under the night sky, a dilapidated temple stood deep within the mountain forest. Jing Hongke sat on the edge of the roof, holding a long scroll and reading by moonlight. Without looking up, he asked softly, "Have you thought it through? Once you enter the Epiphyllum Cult, you can never leave. You will also have to bear the Epiphyllum mark on your body." Li Ya stood in the courtyard with the North Sea heavy sword strapped to his back. He stared fixedly at Jing Hongke. "Weren't you the one who wanted me to join the Epiphyllum Cult? What is this? Now you don't want me anymore?" Jing Hongke turned his head and looked down at him. His expression was proud and indifferent, his gaze seeming to pierce straight through Li Ya. The purpose of the Epiphyllum Cult is to seek the road of the 9 netherworlds. 100 years from now, a great demonic calamity will sweep across all 9 dynasties. When that day comes, only by traveling through the road of the 9 netherworlds will one be able to escape the mortal world after it becomes a living hell. His voice grew low and eerie. Joining the Epiphyllum Cult means fighting for your own path to survival. If you perform well, you may even receive a Epiphyllum. Consuming it can improve your natural aptitude. The words "great demonic calamity" made Li Ya frown. He immediately pressed for details. Jing Hongke did not hide anything and explained the situation. When Li Ya heard that endless demons were expected to sweep across the 9 dynasties, even he could not hide his shock. "What you're saying makes no sense," Li Ya challenged. "South of the 9 dynasties lies the sea. If we can't defeat them, why can't we simply flee? Why must everyone rely on your road of the 9 netherworlds? Since ancient times, how many cultivators have traveled south across the sea, and how many have ever returned? The demons in the ocean are even more terrifying. If all cultivators of the 9 dynasties unite, we may not necessarily lose to this great demonic calamity." Demons beyond the integration realm have already appeared outside the 9 dynasties. Do you even know what the integration realm is? It stands above the void crossing realm. Jing Hongkei's voice turned cold. A single supreme demon at that level could sweep through the 9 dynasties by itself, and there is not merely one of them. Beneath their command are endless hordes of demons. He spoke as though he were simply reciting the predetermined fate of all living beings. Li Ya fell silent. Above the integration realm, he could not help thinking of the Li clan's founding ancestor. He wondered whether the ancestor had surpassed the integration realm as well. Jing Hongke continued, I almost forgot to tell you, the Epiphyllum Cult will also have an existence beyond the integration realm. The day he arrives will be the day the Tai Xuan Sect is reduced to ruins. Guan knew nothing of the conversation Li Ya had experienced. He frequently swept the Tai Cang Dynasty with divine sense and saw Li Ya practicing his swordsmanship near the border. There was now another soul inside Li Ya's body. It seemed Jing Hongke had not deceived him after all. All Guan needed to do now was wait for the Epiphyllum Cult to gather together. Then he would wipe them out in one strike. Ever since Guan destroyed the Epiphyllum tree, the cult had remained highly active, seemingly unaffected. Clearly, there had never been only one Epiphyllum tree. The true enemy of the Tai Xuan Sect was not the current branch of the Epiphyllum Cult. It was the Grand Cultivator from the cult's main branch who was about to arrive. Guan decided to find an opportunity to raise his cultivation to the 9th level of the Great Ascension realm. Even the difference between minor levels was substantial, especially at such high realms. After the New Year festivities, life returned to its usual rhythm. Lu Lingjun stopped seeking Guan out. During the day, she worked. At night, she cultivated beneath the Xuanqing tree. Whenever Guan looked at her, he could not tell whether it was merely his imagination, but he had the strange feeling that she was avoiding his gaze. Ansin adapted quickly to life in the 3rd Medicine Valley. A medicine valley tended to reflect its valley master, and the disciples here were all easygoing and harmonious. No one placed excessive importance on cultivation level, which made Anxin feel far more relaxed. Spring passed into summer, and before long, Guan reached the age of 61. That day, Tong Yu received a foundation establishment pill from Guan, throwing the entire Medicine Valley into excitement. To the others, Tong Yu represented their own future. Watching him prepare for foundation establishment, they could almost imagine themselves doing the same one day. Even Lu Lingjun looked at Guan a few extra times, something she rarely did. As for Anxin, the last of her wariness finally disappeared. She realized she had misunderstood Guan. He truly was a good man. He treated his disciples well, spoke gently, never used crude language, and almost never frowned. He always wore a mild smile that made those around him feel as though they were standing in a warm spring breeze. Once a disciple departed, however, it also meant a new disciple had to be recruited. Guan left that task to Xiaochuan as usual. It was another way to strengthen Xiaochuan's authority within the valley. At noon, Ji Xiaoyu came to visit Guan. The 10 geniuses were still staying in the Medicine Valley to calm their minds and cultivate, though they rarely interacted with the servant disciples and kept a noticeable distance from them. After entering Guan's room and taking a seat, Ji Xiaoyu said softly, I'm preparing to leave. I'm going to take part in the Holy Land's examination. The Holy Land? As Guan poured tea for her, curiosity appeared on his face. What kind of power is the Holy Land, and where is it? Ji Xiaoyu answered, the Holy Land is the oldest power on this continent, with a lineage stretching back 10,000 years. It lies beyond the 9 dynasties. They do not interfere in worldly affairs and do not involve themselves in any conflicts. Every 100 years, they recruit disciples. She continued, once someone enters the Holy Land to cultivate, they must leave within 100 years at most. How long they are allowed to remain depends entirely on their own fortune. The Ji clan itself rose to power because of an inheritance obtained from the Holy Land in the past. Guan grew even more curious. Then what does the Holy Land gain from all this? Why recruit people if they don't intend to keep them? Ji Xiaoyu shook her head. No one knows. Even the elders of my clan who entered the Holy Land and later returned refused to say much. They only say that entering the Holy Land is the only way one might truly knock upon the gate of the immortal Tao. Still so mysterious. Guan pressed further. I've heard that a great demonic calamity will arrive 100 years from now. Why doesn't the Holy Land intervene? Ji Xiaoyu lifted her teacup. In truth, before the 9 dynasties were established, this continent already suffered a great demonic calamity once. Demons ruled the land. Humanity barely survived and became livestock raised by demon beasts, ghosts, and evil entities. Even then, the Holy Land did not act. She paused before continuing. Yet humanity eventually rose again without their help and established the 9 dynasties. The elders of my clan say the Holy Land has already seen through the mortal world. They do not concern themselves with the safety of any single generation. What they care about is the continued existence of the cultivation lineage itself. Guan's opinion of the Holy Land changed at once. It truly did sound like an existence detached from ordinary worldly concerns. He did not ask any more questions after that. Instead, he wished Ji Xiaoyu success in the Holy Land examination and a smooth journey ahead. She did not stay long. She had to depart that very day. Guan escorted her downstairs and watched her leave. Lu Lingjun happened to pass nearby. She approached with curiosity. "Valley Master, what background does that woman have? She doesn't seem ordinary at all." Lu Lingjun had noticed the 10 geniuses cultivating quietly in the Medicine Valley long ago. She knew the sect master had personally arranged for them to stay here, and that Guan was responsible for guiding them. That alone had made her look at Guan differently. Of the 10, however, the one who fascinated her most was Ji Xiaoyu. Lu Lingjun could sense the aura of an innate Dao talisman around her. For a moment, she had even felt the urge to seize it, but she had restrained herself. "She's a true disciple of the sect and also a young lady of the Ji clan," Guan explained. "Her name is Ji Xiaoyu. She's one of the sect's top geniuses, and that was no exaggeration." Among all the cultivators Guan had examined, only Hao possessed a higher maximum lifespan than Ji Xiaoyu, and Hao had already succeeded in forming his core. Rumor had it that he had become a legend within the inner sect, with no one capable of matching him. Gu Yu had even begun comparing him with the sect's great true disciples who were currently training outside. There were many roads in this world. Not every genius needed to attend the 100 Clans gathering or enter the Holy Land. Lu Lingjun nodded lightly. Then she asked, "Valley Master, have you ever read the Tai Xuan Secret Chronicle?" Guan's smile froze instantly. He frowned. "Why are you reading that kind of book? Wonderful. When was the atmosphere of the Tai Xuan Sect ever going to improve? Even an ascender who had only just arrived had already been corrupted." Guan could not help cursing Shenzhen several more times in his heart. "Someone in the outer sect recommended it to me," Lu Lingjun answered honestly. "Wasn't it written by you, Valley Master? The protagonist is named Guan too," Guan snapped. "Do I look like that kind of person to you?" "Not really. That's why I asked." A smile appeared on Lu Lingjun's face. The knot that had been bothering her finally loosened, and suddenly Guan seemed much easier on the eyes. She had held this question in for a long time before finally asking today. "Next time I visit the scripture pavilion, I need to speak to them about their supervision," Guan said seriously. "Someone is actually selling that book openly. You'd be better off destroying your copy." Lu Lingjun rarely saw him act this solemnly. For some reason, it put her in a cheerful mood. With a smile, she asked, "Valley Master, which do you think is better written, the Tai Xuan Secret Chronicle or Xianxia Travels?" Guan froze. Before he could answer, Lu Lingjun turned and walked away. He watched her departing back, opened his mouth, then closed it again. In the end, all that came out was a sigh. His reputation was ruined. Guan shook his head and headed back toward the pavilion. At the same time, he pulled Xianxia Travels out from inside his robe. His reputation was already destroyed anyway. He might as well stop hiding it. Under a bright moon and sparse stars, Xuan Valley lay quiet. Inside his pavilion, Guan was reading a cultivation manual. It was a basic fire element cultivation art. On earlier visits to the inner sect, he had purchased basic cultivation methods of the other elements as well. Since there did not seem to be a true 5 elements cultivation art in this world, he intended to comprehend one by himself. He did not normally cultivate in the traditional sense anyway. What if he actually figured something out? His comprehension might be poor, but he had plenty of time to grind away at it. Late into the night, Guan suddenly sensed an unfamiliar aura entering within 100 li of Xuan Valley. A void-crossing cultivator. Someone at that level was deliberately concealing their aura while approaching Xuan Valley. That could not possibly be for anything good. Guan did not act immediately, however. He already suspected someone. Sure enough, a short while later, Yang Ni emerged from her courtyard. She silently left Xuan Valley and moved quickly toward the void-crossing Grand Cultivator. The two finally met inside a forest more than 30 li away. In the dark mountain woods, Yang Ni stopped and looked toward a figure beneath a tree ahead. By moonlight, she could make out a female cultivator. "You're moving rather slowly, Yang Ni," the woman said coldly. "Why are you still lingering in the outer sect? Has Li Xuandao not arranged for you to enter the inner sect?" The woman wore a long purple dress. Her hair was gathered high and held in place by several jade hairpins. She carried herself with dignified elegance and possessed a beautiful face. Though her eyes were filled with coldness, there was also a faint charm within them capable of bewitching anyone who looked too long. Yang Ni replied, "No, Li Xuandao ordered me to protect an outer sect disciple. That person is closely connected to his son Li Ya. Li Xuandao still hasn't discovered your true identity? Probably not. Otherwise, he would never have sent me to protect Li Ya." The purple-dressed woman said, "The Epiphyllum tree was destroyed by a mysterious cultivator, and even the cult leader is dead. It could only have been a grand cultivator of the Tai Xuan Sect. You must find a way to investigate whether the Tai Xuan Sect possesses any integration realm cultivators at the 5th level or above besides the sect master. 5th level of the integration realm or higher. Yang Ni's expression changed. With my cultivation, how could I possibly get close to an integration realm cultivator? According to information sent back by our people inside the Elder Hall, Lu Baitian failed his tribulation. He could not have been the one who killed the cult leader. A mysterious expert capable of such a feat may very well be Sword Venerable Fu Dao. The woman continued, ever since Sword Venerable Fu Dao became famous, our cult has been investigating him. After eliminating every other possibility, we can only conclude that he is a cultivator deliberately hiding his realm. He may even be concealed somewhere in the outer sect near Heaven Mending Platform. The words made Yang Ni frown. Of course, Sword Venerable Fu Dao is only one possibility. Either way, your next task is to investigate the outer sect. Yang Ni could not help saying, I've been growing epiphyllum recently. I can't leave. You can't leave? The purple-dressed woman paused. Then she spread out her divine sense and remotely scanned Xuan Valley. A few moments later, she snorted. That brat is nothing more than a pretty face. Yang Ni's expression changed at once. Don't touch him. What is your relationship with him? He's not only someone Li Xuandao ordered me to protect, he's also a disciple I only recently accepted. Your disciple? Then why haven't you offered him to me? Shut up. Yang Ni's anger flared, and she reached for her treasured sword. The woman in purple glanced at her with contempt. I'll return next year. If you cannot provide information valuable enough to satisfy me, that brat will belong to me. After I drain every trace of his yang essence, I'll turn his bones into a pendant and give it to you. Then, whenever you miss him, you can take it out and look at it. With that, she turned and left. Yang Ti stared after her, eyes burning with rage. Her hand clenched around the sword hilt, yet in the end she could not draw the blade. She took a deep breath and could only return to the valley. She moved quickly, as though afraid something might already have happened to Guan. While Yang Ni hurried back toward Xuan Valley, the woman in purple walked leisurely through the forest. Remembering Yang Ni's reaction, a mocking smile appeared on her face. Smack! A hand suddenly landed on her shoulder. The woman froze instantly, her pupils contracting. Hey-ya, boom! A terrifying surge of divine sense forced its way into her mind. Her eyes went vacant. Elsewhere, Yang Ni returned to Xuan Valley and walked beneath Guan's pavilion. Seeing that an oil lamp was still burning upstairs and sensing that Guan's aura remained inside, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Inside the room, Guan sat before his desk. The purple-dressed woman knelt in front of him, while his right hand rested upon her head. He was using the soul-capturing art. His spiritual power enveloped her completely, while the 9 extremes yin-yang body concealed her presence. Unless someone walked right up beside them, even divine sense would fail to see her, or detect a trace of her aura. Guan had originally intended only to eavesdrop, but the woman in purple had used divine sense to investigate him, then immediately developed hostility severe enough for his system to warn him that she wanted to hack him into 10,000 pieces. How could he possibly tolerate that? So Guan had seized her at once. Before killing her, however, he needed information about the Epiphyllum Cult. This woman's identity was clearly not simple. Perhaps her memories would contain something useful. Her name was Su Shan. She had once been an elder of Xianxia Pavilion and had joined the Epiphyllum Cult 200 years ago. After the cult's defeat, she remained hidden within Xianxia Pavilion as an infiltrator. Yang Ni had personally been recruited into the cult by Su Shan. The reason Yang Ni had agreed was because Su Shan promised to help her find the person who murdered her elder sister. Su Shan's real purpose in recruiting Yang Ni was to monitor Li Xuandao and Li Ya. After Li Ya inherited the Tianzu sword, Su Shan realized he might become a successor to something important. So she first assigned Yang Ni to watch father and son while waiting for the Epiphyllum Cult to return. Yang Ni had never fully trusted Su Shan. She merely wanted another path toward discovering the truth. What she did not know was that the person who had murdered her sister was Su Shan herself. The power structure of the Epiphyllum Cult was extremely complicated, with many separate branches. Every void-crossing elder competed to earn merit for themselves. Once an elder accumulated enough contributions, they could enter the road of the 9 netherworlds and pursue the immortal Tao beyond it. As for the road of the 9 netherworlds, even Su Shan had only heard stories and had never personally seen it. It was said to cross the ocean and lead to another continent. The Epiphyllum Cult had created it as an yin-yang passage traveling through a region where the ghost realm intersected with the worlds of yin and yang. That place was filled with malicious ghosts and terrifying danger, but also countless opportunities. Guan searched for a long time, yet still found no information about the main branch of the Epiphyllum Cult. He remained unable to determine just how powerful the cult's main branch truly was. By the time he withdrew his divine sense, an entire hour had passed. He looked down at Su Shan's seductive face with open disgust. While using the soul-capturing art, he had witnessed many revolting scenes from her past. A demonic cultivator was still a demonic cultivator in the end. Guan immediately ended Su Shan's life, then burned her body to ash. And just like that, a void-crossing grand cultivator died without making so much as a sound. She contributed several dozen years of lifespan to Guan. It was barely acceptable. Afterward, he began inspecting her 2 storage rings. At the same time, Yang Ni sat in her own room, unable to settle into cultivation. Su Shan's threat repeated endlessly in her mind. The thought that Guan might be dragged into danger because of her made her deeply uneasy. She did not have any special romantic feelings toward him. But after living together for so many years, the two had naturally grown close. And when she imagined such a decent junior being harmed because of her, how could she possibly remain calm? By early morning, Lu Jia was already calling the disciples out for training. Guan came downstairs as well. The success of the whole day begins in the morning. Yang Ni, time to come out and train. He walked to the courtyard where Yang Ni lived and called out. She appeared quickly, giving Guan only a light nod as though nothing had happened the previous night. Guan did not say much either. Still, the fact that Yang Ni had dared reach for her sword when Su Shan threatened him left him quietly pleased. He would give her more land later so she could grow even more medicinal herbs. After the night she met Su Shan, Yang Ni began traveling to the outer sect every other day, using the excuse that she was searching for higher-grade seeds. Guan's own life remained undisturbed. He continued moving between his 3 medicine valleys as usual. Near the end of summer, Guan traveled to Tianya Valley. Lu Baitian and Yi Liuyun were both gone, and they had taken the 3 monkey demons with them. Only Lu Xian remained in the valley. A grand cultivator's cave dwelling was discovered several thousand li away, Lu Xian explained as he walked toward Guan. There are many heavenly treasures there as well. Yi Liuyun took the others to transport them back. They won't return for several days. As he spoke, his eyes remained fixed on Guan, shining strangely. Guan nodded and turned toward the garden. Then Lu Xian's voice came from behind him. Guan, just what kind of monster are you? His tone was utterly different from usual, heavy with killing intent. Guan stopped and turned halfway around, smiling. What monster? I'm just an ordinary cultivator who likes growing things. Something was wrong with this fool. Why did it feel as though he had become an entirely different person? Could another remnant soul inside his body have seized control of his thoughts? Guan wondered inwardly. Lu Xian gave a cold laugh, his expression turning fierce. I only taught you a few times, yet your mastery of the Xuanwu heaven-shocking palm already surpasses what I achieved after 10 years of bitter training. Guan raised an eyebrow. He had deliberately restrained himself, yet Lu Xian had still noticed something unusual. This was troublesome. Lu Xian took one step forward. The aura of a 9th-level core formation cultivator exploded from his body, sweeping dead leaves into the air like a rising tornado. The momentum was astonishing. Even though he was only at the 9th level of core formation, his aura could already rival that of a lower-level nascent soul cultivator. He truly deserved his former reputation as the #1 genius of the Tai Xuan Sect. I discovered that cave dwelling long ago, Lu Xian said with a cold smile. I guessed you would come today, so I sent them away in advance. He raised his hand. Today you and I will finally determine who's stronger. Spiritual power gathered in his right palm. The space beneath it rippled violently like an angry sea. Guan lifted one hand. Don't cause trouble. I'm really not some genius. Why do you keep fixating on me? I've never posed any threat to you. If you insist on making trouble, I'll have no choice but to beat you to death. Lu Xian licked his lips. Relax. I won't kill you. I only want to find out how deep you're hiding. If you keep concealing your strength, be careful you don't end up like Li Ya. The instant those words fell, Guan's gaze turned cold. Then taste my Xuanwu heaven-shocking palm. Lu Xian roared and struck. The palm force swept forward with world-shaking power. A violent gale erupted, pressure surging toward Guan like mountains and seas collapsing together. Grass along the path was ripped from the earth as dirt and dust exploded into the air. Boom! The force of the Xuanwu heaven-shocking palm shot skyward, forming a towering wall of compressed air nearly 100 zhang high. The sight was magnificent. Lu Xian's smile froze. Beyond that towering wall of force, Guan still stood exactly where he had been. The palm strike had been forcibly stopped. Behind him, rows of medicinal herbs swayed gently in the wind. Not a single one had been harmed. At that moment, Guan's face was expressionless. His entire presence had changed so suddenly that Lu Xian almost felt he was looking at a stranger. You? Lu Xian's voice trembled. Guan stepped toward him. With a single step, he crossed several zhang and appeared directly in front of Lu Xian. Boom! Lu Xian's aura shattered instantly. The terrifying force sent him crashing backward, leaving him sprawled helplessly on the ground with none of the bearing expected from the former leader of the Hidden Dragon ranking. Guan raised his right hand and looked down at him, palm aimed directly at his head. Lu Xian was horrified to discover that he could not move. An overwhelming spiritual force pinned him in place, something he had no hope of resisting. Soul formation. Lu Xian forced out through clenched teeth. His judgment was not wrong. Guan had deliberately limited his displayed cultivation to the soul formation realm, but even that was more than enough to suppress Lu Xian with ease. "Why do you insist on forcing me?" Guan asked quietly, looking down at him. His killing intent had become almost tangible. Lu Xian could practically smell death. Guan's unchanged expression was more frightening than any rage Lu Xian had ever seen. Wait, for the first time, genuine fear appeared on Lu Xian's face. Guan simply stared down at him in silence. In truth, he had no real desire to kill Lu Xian. After all, Lu Xian was Lu Baitian's son. More importantly, Lu Xian had never developed true hostility toward him. He clearly only wanted to test himself in a spar. But if Guan wanted to stop the man from pestering him forever, he had no choice but to scare him senseless with soul formation power. "I was wrong. Don't kill me," Lu Xian said through gritted teeth. He lowered his proud head, not daring to look at Guan. He was still sitting paralyzed on the ground, unable even to stand. The humiliating posture burned at his pride. "You forced me to reveal my true cultivation," Guan said coldly. "From now on, endless trouble may come looking for me. Do you understand how much that annoys me? I only wanted to grow plants in peace. Why did you have to force me? Why the end?" His voice had fallen into a low growl. His features twisted, making him look almost unhinged. Lu Xian looked up and was immediately terrified by the madness on his face. "I won't tell anyone. I swear, I guarantee it." Spiritual power began gathering in Guan's raised hand. The terrifying pressure of the soul formation realm made Lu Xian's heart pound with fear. "Wait, I know a clue about an 8th-rank spirit flower," Lu Xian blurted out. "It has been growing for several hundred years but still hasn't developed intelligence. Don't you like growing flowers? You can go take it." He was truly frightened now, his entire body beginning to tremble. Guan's interest was immediately stirred. He narrowed his eyes. "Where?" Feeling the pressure on his body weaken, Lu Xian hurriedly pulled a map from his storage pouch. "Here, I got this map when I attended the 100 Clans gathering. An old senior I met there gave it to me." Guan accepted the map, scanned it briefly, then tossed it into his storage pouch. He looked back at Lu Xian and frowned. "You truly won't tell anyone?" Lu Xian immediately swore. "If I reveal your cultivation to anyone, then when I face my tribulation in this life, may heart demons invade me and destroy both my body and Tao." Only then did Guan withdraw his aura. His displayed cultivation fell back to foundation establishment once more. The flowers and grass swaying throughout the Medicine Valley gradually settled as well. Lu Xian immediately exhaled in relief. His forehead was soaked in sweat, and he could not stop himself from panting. Guan's familiar mild expression returned. He pulled Lu Xian to his feet, brushed the dust from his clothes, and said, "Brother Lu, forgive my rudeness. Promise me you won't play a joke like this again." It wasn't amusing in the slightest. Lu Xian forced a smile. Afterward, Guan turned and went back to what he had been doing. Lu Xian stared at his back for a long time without speaking. Half an hour later, Guan called out a farewell and left. Lu Xian sat alone on the grass, staring blankly at the sun overhead. The sun set, the moon rose. 2 full days and nights passed, yet he remained in a daze. Only when Luohun, Yiluyun, and the 3 monkey demons finally returned did he stir. They were laughing and talking, clearly having made a very good haul. Seeing Lu Xian sitting motionless on the ground, Yiluyun laughed. "Lu Xian, why aren't you cultivating?" Lu Xian's body trembled slightly. He turned toward Yiluyun and asked, "Do you think I can reach soul formation before I'm 100? He knew Guan's age. Guan was not much older than Li Ya. Yiluyun shook his head. "If you hadn't wasted so much time before, you definitely could have reached soul formation before 100. But you're already 90 now. Going from the 9th level of core formation to the 1st level of soul formation in only 10 years, that's difficult." Luohun offered a suggestion. "His Majesty values you greatly. If you ask, he'll certainly provide you with large quantities of pills." Lu Xian said nothing. He had fallen into deep self-doubt. Could it be that he was not actually a genius at all? From the day Guan dealt with him, Lu Xian became completely obedient. Whenever Guan later returned to Tianya Valley, Lu Xian was always in secluded cultivation. Luohun said he wanted to break through to soul formation as soon as possible. Guan asked why, but Luohun admitted he had no idea. That reassured Guan. Lu Xian might be a little unstable, but at least he knew how to keep his mouth shut. The matter could be considered finished. Guan studied the map Lu Xian had given him, but the marked location lay far too distant from the Tai Kang Dynasty. For now, he could only set it aside. What if a great ascension cultivator lived there? He could not take such a risk. His 3 medicine valleys were already producing lifespan at an excellent rate. Even without expanding further, his reserves would continue growing quickly. In the blink of an eye, another 2 months passed. The withered colors of autumn settled over Xuan Valley. One day, shortly before noon, Yi Lan came to visit him. They had not seen each other in nearly a year, and Yi Lan had missed him badly. The moment she entered the room, she threw her arms around him. "Junior sister," Guan said sternly, clear reproach in his voice. Yi Lan released him and giggled. "What's wrong with one hug? It's simply proper etiquette between senior brother and junior sister after being apart for so long. Senior brother, don't overthink it. I have no interest in romance right now. I only want to cultivate." Guan gave her a look, then turned away to prepare tea. A moment earlier, he had instinctively used lifespan detection on her. The result weighed heavily on his heart. Yi Lan 5th Level Foundation Establishment, 56 130 130. A normal foundation establishment cultivator should live well beyond 200 years. But Yi Lan's foundation establishment had been built largely through pills supplied by Guan. Her lifespan had stopped increasing long ago. What would happen when Yi Lan reached 130? Would she suffer the 5 declines of heaven and man? Would she suddenly die? Would a heart demon arise and cause her blood and ki to collapse? Guan sighed inwardly. He decided to teach her the Tao evolution art. She still had 64 years left. Perhaps it would help. The Tao evolution art worked through long-term accumulation of spiritual energy. That gave Guan a bold idea. What would happen if someone cultivating the Tao evolution art consumed spirit ki pills continuously and in enormous quantities? Yi Lan had no idea what her senior brother was thinking. She began telling him everything she had witnessed on her recent mission. The law enforcement hall had gone out to protect Crown Prince Li Dai, and their enemy had been the Epiphyllum Cult. Over the past half-year, Yi Lan had experienced 7 or 8 battles. Each had been dangerous, but she had survived them all without serious harm. Guan had known about this for some time. Every now and then, he had used divine sense to check on her. The law enforcement hall disciples had mostly served as support, while the actual fighting had been handled by several nascent soul cultivators. Senior brother, the only reason we managed to return safely was because a void-crossing grand cultivator came to protect the crown prince. Yi Lan said excitedly. Above nascent soul is soul formation, and only above soul formation comes void crossing. That senior was unbelievably powerful. He killed a soul formation demonic cultivator of the Epiphyllum Cult with a single palm strike. Her excitement grew as she remembered it. At the time, all of us thought we were definitely going to die. None of us expected the Crown Prince to have an expert like that behind him, and I heard that person isn't even a cultivator of the Tai Xuan Sect. Guan raised his eyebrows and pretended to be shocked. That powerful? How old is he? I heard he's already 900 years old. As Yi Lan answered, she carefully watched Guan's expression. She had once suspected that Guan himself was Sword Venerable Fu Dao. During the chaos in the outer sect, her white spirit sword had sensed the King Hong sword, and the sword that had carved the two characters Righteous Dao into heaven-mending platform had been the King Hong sword. Later, however, she realized that Sword Venerable Fu Dao had to be in existence at least beyond the soul formation realm. That made her hesitate. She had grown up with Guan and knew his age clearly. A void-crossing cultivator only a few dozen years old? Such a thing had never been heard of in the cultivation world. And since Guan had always refused to admit that he was Sword Venerable Fu Dao, Yi Lan began to suspect another possibility. Perhaps Guan was Sword Venerable Fu Dao's disciple. Either way, Yi Lan felt that she was not worthy of her senior brother. That was why she now rarely showed her feelings openly, and instead devoted more energy to cultivation. Once her cultivation rose high enough, if senior brother ever decided he wanted a Dao companion, that would be her opportunity. Guan sighed with feeling. Junior sister, the cultivators you encounter are becoming stronger and stronger, but your own cultivation seems increasingly difficult to improve. Would you like to learn one of your senior brother's cultivation arts? What cultivation art? Yi Lan asked curiously. The Gale Shadowless kick that Guan had given her was already her strongest combat technique, so she would never look down on a cultivation method offered by him. Perhaps it had been passed down by Sword Venerable Fu Dao himself. Guan began explaining the Dao evolution art. Yi Lan listened with complete seriousness. When he finished, she could not help asking, "Senior brother, you have so many medicinal herbs, yet your cultivation barely seems to advance. Is that because you're cultivating the Dao evolution art too?" Guan nodded. "This is a peerless cultivation art. I'm teaching it to you alone, so you must not speak of it to anyone else." Warm sweetness immediately filled Yi Lan's heart. After a moment of hesitation, she asked, "If I cultivate the Dao evolution art, won't that increase the burden on you?" She knew Guan too well. He would inevitably keep giving her pills to support her cultivation. Doing so would surely slow his own progress. Guan smiled. "If you're worried, then don't cultivate it. Just sit around and wait for your final calamity to arrive. Your senior brother, meanwhile, will live a few hundred years longer." By then I'll take in several more pretty junior sisters and enjoy being surrounded by beauties. Absolutely not. I'm cultivating it, Yilan snapped, glaring at him. Guan then took out the copy of the Tao evolution art he had already written in advance and handed it to her. Yilan accepted it, then pulled a black wooden box from her storage pouch. This is the gift I prepared for you. I originally planned to give it to you after we finished talking, but you gave me a cultivation art first. Now my gift suddenly feels insufficient. Accepted the box with a smile. Junior sister, what kind of strange thing are you saying? You've given me so many good things over the years. Without question, you're the person who treats me best. The 6th rank human-faced tree had been a gift from Ye Lan, and every time she came to visit, she brought him various medicinal herbs as well. Guan had tried refusing before, but Yilan insisted that she was merely repaying him for all the pills he had given her. If he kept rejecting her after that, he would only appear cold and distant. So now the two exchanged gifts freely, and both of them were happy with the arrangement. Hearing his words, Yilan smiled. This is Dark Vine. It should be around the 5th rank. There's only a small section left, so it will probably need 10 or 20 years of cultivation before it fully recovers. If you manage to raise it successfully, it can guard a residence and protect the grounds. It can also block divine sense probing. Guan opened the box. Inside lay something that looked almost like a charred piece of wood, with only the faintest trace of life remaining. He was not disappointed. With Yilan's cultivation, obtaining even a surviving fragment of something like this was already impressive. The human-faced tree had also started as nothing more than a root, and now it was gradually recovering its vitality. After that, Yilan continued sharing the stories she had heard about the cultivation world during her time away. Guan listened seriously, completely engrossed. Recently, a mysterious group of cultivators had appeared calling themselves the 13 Candles of the 9 Netherworlds. They had stormed directly into the myriad Yin cult, seized its supreme treasure, and walked away openly. Their strength had shaken the entire cultivation world. There was another major development as well. The Gu Hao sect had successfully raised the sacred beast How Long, causing morale throughout the sect to soar. Cultivators across many provinces were discussing the matter and declaring that the Gu Hao sect was about to rise. That sacred beast was, of course, the very How Long Guan had once raised. He had already checked on the Gu Hao sect with divine sense. How Long was living happily there, pampered and treasured by the entire sect, so Guan had nothing to worry about. According to Ye Lan, the cultivation world had recently become relatively calm. The Epiphyllum Cult had also settled down and stopped fighting the demonic factions with such suicidal intensity. But Guan knew this was only the calm before the storm. Once the Grand Cultivator from the Epiphyllum Cult's main branch arrived, the cultivation world would once again be drowned in blood and chaos. Late that night, the spiritual energy of the North Sea mountain range began sinking again, startling living beings throughout the region. Guan sat in meditation inside a barrier, enjoying the sensation of his cultivation rising. He spent 3,000 years of lifespan to advance to the 9th level of the Great Ascension Realm. After nearly half an hour, he invested another 50,000 years of lifespan into his alchemy art. He had once believed he could improve his alchemy through ordinary practice alone. Eventually, he realized that alchemy required talent, too. The 50,000-year investment evolved his basic alchemy art into the Tai Ching alchemical Tao, dramatically increasing his understanding of pill refinement. A vast flood of memories poured into his mind, and he became immersed in them. The alchemy art he had originally practiced was merely the Tai Xuan Sect's basic alchemy method. Different sects possessed different alchemical traditions, which meant they could evolve into entirely different alchemical Daos. The Tai Ching alchemical Tao also contained a spell known as Tai Ching True Fire. This flame could greatly improve his pill refining and could also be used to kill enemies. Those 50,000 years of lifespan had been money well spent. When Guan finally awakened, he raised his right hand. A blue flame sprang to life above his fingertip. The corner of his mouth lifted into a smile. Then he glanced at his status interface. 490,000 years of lifespan remained. He was absurdly wealthy. Guan dismissed the lifespan barrier and rose to leave. Then his gaze suddenly shifted toward a nearby cliff wall. The disturbance caused by the sinking spiritual energy had bent the weeds in front of the cliff. Looking more carefully, Guan noticed a narrow crack in the stone. Wisps of spiritual energy were leaking from within, and this spiritual energy was unusual. It was not ordinary 5 elements spiritual energy. Guan immediately walked over, stopped before the cliff, and sent his divine sense inside. It did not take long before he encountered a restriction. A very powerful one. Anyone below the void-crossing realm would have found it extremely difficult to break through by force. Guan immediately understood the situation. Rather than destroying the restriction, he activated the 9 extremes yin-yang body. and transformed into his demonic shadow form. Then, using the limitless free step, he moved inward one step at a time. He passed through layer after layer of restrictions until he entered a vast underground space. It was even larger than the Bajing Grotto Heaven. An underground lake occupied the center. Along one shore stretched a meadow roughly 300 zhang long and 100 zhang wide, with a row of ancient trees growing beside it. Beneath one of those old trees stood a weathered wooden house. Guan's divine sense detected no cultivators and no demon beasts. There were only many small fish in the underground lake, along with one enormous fish nearly 2 zhang long that resembled some kind of spirit beast. Guan walked forward and passed a stone monument. 4 large characters had been carved into its surface. Xianxia Cave Abode. The spiritual energy here was incredibly dense, even richer than inside the Bajing Grotto Heaven. Guan immediately used lifespan detection on the row of ancient trees. Every one of them was a 6th-rank spirit tree, known as the Qingshin tree. Excellent. Guan's eyes lit up. If no one lived here, then this place could become his 4th Medicine Valley. Xuan Valley, the 3rd Medicine Valley, and Xianxia Valley all existed directly beneath other people's eyes. Guan stored his true treasures inside the Bajing Grotto Heaven, but even that Grotto Heaven had limited space. He walked straight toward the wooden house. Outside stood a stone table covered in moss. 2 books lay upon it. One had no title. The other was a secret manual. Heaven-Severing Divine Axe. What a domineering name. Guan picked up the untitled book and began to read. It was a final testament left behind by the owner of the Xianxia Cave Abode. The owner had been known as Ancestor Xianxia, and he had actually been a profound heart realm cultivator. Guan continued reading, his brow gradually tightening. Ancestor Xianxia had once been a supreme elder of the Tai Xuan Sect. After leaving the sect, he built the Xianxia Cave Abode here, intending to comprehend the Tao in seclusion. Instead, he eventually suffered qi deviation and fell to heart demons. Before his death, he chose to leave the cave dwelling and travel toward the lands of demons beyond the 9 dynasties. The Heaven-Severing Divine Axe was Ancestor Xianxia's strongest ultimate art. It came from the Holy Land and was one of the Holy Land's 9 great inheritances. Guan remembered one passage from the untitled book. 800 years of bitter cultivation. Countless pills consumed. At last, I reached the profound heart realm, yet in the end, I still could not escape the calamity of heart demons. I hate this. I hate it? Guan frowned slightly. Ancestor Xianxia's hatred practically burned from the page. It was hatred directed at heaven itself. He hated heaven for allowing him to finally reach the profound heart realm, only to send heart demons before he could even enjoy what he had achieved. The moment Guan finished reading that passage, he thought of lifespan limits. Somewhere beyond sight, it almost seemed as though a kind of fate shackled all living beings. Perhaps Ancestor Xianxia's natural lifespan had only been sufficient for him to reach the integration realm. But by relying on enormous resources, he had forcibly broken through into the profound heart realm without actually extending his lifespan. In the end, heart demons descended and forced him into a death calamity. The more Guan considered it, the more plausible the idea seemed. Cultivators always said they were struggling against heaven. Perhaps it would be more accurate to say they were struggling against fate. Guan believed fate could be broken. He himself was the best proof. Perhaps the lifespan limits visible to him existed precisely to remind him that such a thing as fate truly existed. Aside from his own ability to seize lifespan, there had to be opportunities somewhere in the world capable of breaking those limits. He simply had not encountered them yet. Immortality was so difficult, precisely because it was worth pursuing. That was why generation after generation continued throwing themselves onto the immortal path without hesitation. He would see whether the Tao evolution art actually worked. If it did, he could invest some lifespan into improving it as well. Guan felt there was genuine hope. After all, Wu Jin's life far exceeded that of others in the same realm. He continued reading. The latter half of the testament recorded events from Ancestor Xianxia's life, from the day he entered the Tai Xuan Sect to his struggle for the position of sect master. It read almost like a novel, brief in its descriptions, but more than enough to stir the imagination. After finishing the final testament, Guan placed it in his storage pouch. Then he picked up the secret manual for the Heaven-Severing Divine Axe. The more he read, the more absorbed he became. In his mind's eye, he could almost see a figure wielding a massive axe. The Heaven-Severing Divine Axe contained 9 forms in total: Sever Fate, Sever Demon, Sever Ghost, Sever Mountain, Sever Sea, Sever Art, Sever God, Sever Heaven. The names were unbelievably domineering. Whether the final forms could truly sever immortals and heaven itself was another matter. These were not 9 cultivation levels, but 9 distinct techniques. Ancestor Xianxia had mastered all 9. Before falling to heart demons, he had never once encountered an opponent capable of defeating him. He swept across the cultivation world of the 9 dynasties and established the Tai Xuan Sect's reputation as the foremost orthodox sect under heaven. Even so, he never left the heaven-severing divine axe behind within the Tai Xuan Sect. It was an inheritance of the Holy Land and could not be passed to outsiders. If the Holy Land discovered such a violation, the offender's cultivation would be destroyed. Ancestor Xianxia had specifically emphasized this warning in his testament. After skimming the manual once, Guan stored it away as well. He turned and entered the dilapidated wooden house. Everything inside was ancient and decayed. Weeds grew across the floor. Standing upright in the room was a single axe covered in thick dust. Guan walked over and blew lightly. The dust scattered at once, revealing a black battle axe beneath. The heaven-severing axe. It was a supreme-grade magical artifact forged from North Sea nether iron moreover. Nether iron that had existed for 1,000,000 years. It was even heavier than Liya's North Sea heavy sword, and capable of enduring a far greater flow of spiritual power. Guan wrapped his hand around the heaven-severing axe and immediately frowned. A little heavy. He was not only a great ascension cultivator, but also practiced the innate wish-fulfilling art, which had given him tremendous physical strength. If even he could clearly feel the axe's weight, that alone showed just how unimaginably heavy it was. Forget using the techniques of the heaven-severing divine axe. It felt as though simply smashing someone with the weapon would be enough to kill them outright. Guan lifted the heaven-severing axe. Once he used his strength seriously, however, it became light in his hands, easy to swing as though it weighed almost nothing. He tried to place the treasure into his storage pouch. The pouch's spatial restriction immediately rejected it. It can't be stored? Guan's eyes brightened. Interesting. He set the heaven-severing axe back down and searched the rest of the room. There was nothing else of value. A short while later, Guan stepped out of the Xianxia cave abode and sealed the crack in the cliff wall. He possessed a supreme grade 5 elements heavenly spirit root, including the earth element, which allowed him to condense spiritual power directly into soil and stone. Only after completely sealing the entrance did he finally relax. From now on, this cave dwelling belongs to me. Guan's mood brightened. A faint smile appeared on his face as he stepped back into the Xianxia cave abode. Time to reclaim the land. Late autumn arrived in the third Medicine Valley. The disciples were sweeping fallen leaves when Lingjun suddenly lifted her head toward the horizon. A figure was approaching at tremendous speed. Her brows drew together slightly as shock rose in her heart. 9th level of the integration realm. The newcomer was Lu Baitian. He rapidly flew to the pavilion where Guan lived, landed, and walked straight up the steps. Lingjun withdrew her gaze, curiosity stirring within her. Just who was that man? Lu Baitian had visited the third Medicine Valley many times, but he had never revealed his true identity. Even when Anhao and Anshin spoke of him, they merely referred to him as a senior of the sect. Inside the room, Lu Baitian shut the door and set up a restriction to prevent anyone from spying. Guan put down the book in his hand and smiled. "Sect Master, what brings you here?" He stood and moved to prepare tea. "No need for the trouble. Sit down, let's talk." Lu Baitian waved him off, pulled a chair toward the table and sat. Guan sat opposite him. "Talk about what? What could he possibly want to talk to me about? Don't tell me it's the disciple thing again." Guan cursed inwardly. He was a dignified great ascension cultivator. There was no chance he was going to acknowledge someone else as his master. "Let's talk about Li Xuandao," Lu Baitian said, staring directly at him. Guan looked surprised. What happened to him? Crown Prince Li Dai had his golden core dug out. His nascent soul and cultivation were destroyed. The void-crossing cultivator protecting him is dead as well. Lu Baitian's words genuinely caught Guan off guard. He was truly a little surprised. The law enforcement hall had only just left, and Li Xuandao had already made his move? He had only recently entered the void-crossing realm, yet he could already kill another cultivator at the same realm? Not simple at all. Void-crossing grand cultivators possessed countless methods. Even when one could not defeat an opponent at the same realm, escaping was usually not particularly difficult. Guan might kill void-crossing cultivators effortlessly, but that was because he suppressed them from a higher realm, leaving them no chance to flee. Lu Baitian asked, "Does Li Xuandao have another void-crossing cultivator beside him?" Guan answered helplessly. "Whether he does or not, how would I be able to tell?" Lu Baitian paused. That did make sense. His expression relaxed slightly. Now that the Crown Prince is dead, the Tai Xuan Sect can only support Li Ya. The imperial throne must be held by a prince aligned with the Tai Xuan Sect. Unfortunately, Li Ya has been away for many years and still hasn't returned. Lu Baitian sighed. "If the Epiphyllum Cult weren't about to attack, I would truly like to depose Li Xuandao." Guan looked surprised. "Why depose him?" Lu Baitian answered. "He's been emperor for nearly 200 years. Throughout the Tai Kang realm, demonic disturbances never cease. Evil entities roam everywhere, and the people's grievances echo from every direction. Replacing the emperor and offering the change to heaven might alter the dynasty's fortune. His expression darkened. Unfortunately, he won over several elders in the Elder Hall, so I couldn't conveniently force him to abdicate before. Then, just as my cultivation began recovering, the Epiphyllum Cult returned. One problem after another. The moment he mentioned the Epiphyllum Cult, irritation covered his face. Guan found it difficult to judge whether Lu Baitian genuinely cared that deeply about the suffering of the people, or whether he simply disliked Li Xuandao. Both men supplied Guan with high-grade medicinal herbs, so he had no intention of choosing sides. He would simply sit back and watch them struggle against each other. Li Xuandao was certainly capable. He had managed to prevent a 9th-level integration realm grand cultivator from making a move against him for so long, all while his own cultivation continued rising at remarkable speed. If Lu Baitian knew that Li Xuandao had already reached the void-crossing realm, he would probably leave right now and try to kill him. Lu Baitian then began talking about the Epiphyllum Cult. Venerable Pavilion had gathered many clues related to the cult. There were still Epiphyllum Cult spies inside the Elder Hall and more than one. This infuriated Lu Baitian. Only a few years earlier, he had purged a group of demonic spies. Yet among those who remained were still infiltrators, and they belonged to the organization he hated most of all. I've received intelligence that Zhong Wang, the leader of the Epiphyllum Cult, is dead, Lu Baitian said with a mocking smile. No one knows who killed him. The cult has become extremely quiet and is now waiting for cultivators from its main branch to arrive. He snorted. They even suspect I killed Zhong Wang. Ridiculous. If anything, I suspect they killed one another. Guan asked curiously. Why has the war between the Epiphyllum Cult and the demonic path been concentrated in the North Sea mountain range? Lu Baitian replied. Because most of the Epiphyllum Cult's upper ranks are in North Sea. They're searching for a fortuitous opportunity, one connected to our sect. What opportunity? 1,000 years ago, one of our supreme elders comprehended the Tao in the North Sea mountain range and surpassed the integration realm. Later, he disappeared without a trace. Lu Baitian's tone became solemn. But according to legend, when he left, he did not take the Tai Xuan Sect's supreme treasure, the heaven-severing axe. That axe cannot be stored inside spatial artifacts, and it is connected to a great inheritance. The Epiphyllum Cult has been searching for that inheritance ever since. So that's it. Guan felt secretly pleased. The Epiphyllum Cult had searched for years without finding anything, while he had stumbled onto it by accident. It seemed a sudden drop in spiritual energy could have benefits after all. The heaven-severing axe is no ordinary treasure, Lu Baitian continued with emotion. It's said to be connected to the Holy Land. Over the past 3,000 years, that Supreme Elder was the only person from our sect capable of inheriting something of that level from the Holy Land. He was also my Grandmaster, so Ancestor Xianxia had truly been that formidable. Guan thought of the weight of the heaven-severing axe, and suddenly found the stories much easier to believe. Lu Baitian clearly worshipped Ancestor Xianxia and began recounting his legendary deeds. He had never met Ancestor Xianxia personally, but his own master had spoken about him often. According to his master, Ancestor Xianxia had never lost a battle in his entire life. No matter how many enemies surrounded him, he could always carve a path through them. Ancestor Xianxia had even traveled south beyond the dynasties. According to the stories, he returned only after obtaining an immortal art and then entered seclusion. Guan, however, knew the truth. Ancestor Xianxia had never obtained any immortal art. He had wandered the sea for years and had nearly been killed by a demon king. That was why he fled back, intending to wait until he reached the profound heart realm before venturing out again. Unfortunately, he never fulfilled that wish before his death. Guan suddenly thought of the sect's eldest true disciple, who had gone out to gain experience. Could that person have traveled onto the sea as well? It was said that the eldest true disciple was even more formidable than Lu Baitian. There was a real possibility that he had already reached the profound heart realm. But when Guan brought up the eldest true disciple, Lu Baitian immediately became irritated, and clearly did not want to discuss the subject. Their relationship was obviously poor. When Lu Baitian finally finished speaking, he suddenly fell silent. Guan also sensed an immensely powerful aura arriving from the north. But with Lu Baitian sitting directly in front of him, he pretended not to notice. Lu Baitian turned his head and looked toward the sky outside the window. He murmured, "So it has finally come after all?" Guan asked with apparent confusion. "What has come?" Lu Baitian stood. "Nothing. I have something to deal with. I need to leave." He hurried out. Guan immediately rose and escorted him to the balcony. He noticed that Lingjun had also sensed the powerful aura from afar. She stood below with a slight frown on her face. Perhaps sensing Guan's gaze, she glanced up at him once, then lowered her head and continued sweeping leaves. Guan watched the direction Lu Baitian had gone, curiosity rising quietly within him. Just what was the origin of that aura? It did not feel like the aura of a cultivator. There was something strange about it. Something he could not quite put into words.